Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida. Dude, I'm telling you, dude. Dr. Narco Longo came on and dropped the hammer of the god.
America's mother, the daughter is. God sent the weatherland, the devil sent the Spanish. Florida is Eden, the phantom of youth, Kalia's deception. So Florida is the truth.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Dr. Narco Longo.
Florida, it is everything. There's too much truth bombs being dropped. I can't digest it all.
Old World, Florida.
One guy.
Please welcome Dr. Narco Longo.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. We got a piping hot stream for you tonight. We're gonna be keeping it hip. We're gonna do some hipping and hopping, maybe some hypnotism. But we got, I don't know, I think he's the guy who he definitely coined hip-hop hypnosis, right? I mean,
That is,
you're not only the originator of the term, you're the originator of kind of the concept that people are only recently kind of tapping into, waking up to. But for those who don't know, because we haven't seen him in a little bit, Uncle in the house, Unc Alfonso, Alan Ericson, the descendant, the last final living descendant, direct living descendant of the man who discovered, the first European who discovered the Americas, Leif Erikson, his great descendant, Alan Ericson. Boom. Here he is.
Boom.
Alan, the author of The Sharter.
yes.
Okay. Recently re-released, republished.
Boom.
Shell, yeah. So we're
Mhm.
going to be talking hip hop. We've got special guest Alan here. We've got Seth here, who recently did a really good stream with Alan. And yeah, you guys see the title. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. But Alan, what's new, man?
Man, all sorts of things. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be back on the channel. I'm happy to be with you guys, ready to discuss hip-hop hypnosis. I think when I think about a very simple definition, when we define hypnosis as behavior modification through repetition, and perhaps we visualize a glass of water, and we remember our bodies are 70% water, we visualize that glass of water near a stereo, and we realize that millions and millions of young people are in a state of hip-hop hypnosis. And I started to snap out of that around 2017, 2018 to 2020. I started diving into all the conspiracies about all the guys that passed away. Like during that time period, it was nuts. There was Lil Peep, there was XXXTentacion, Nipsey Hussle. It was like every other month there was one of these guys dying. Juice WRLD was another one. Big rapper Mac Miller was another one. So I would dive into all these conspiracies surrounding their deaths. I would check out the gematria. I would check out the symbolism, all of this. But at a certain point, I realized the whole thing was disgusting. And that's when I coined the term the Sharter. And I realized that it's better to lampoon this spectacle and make fun of it rather than just have my soul sucked by this disgusting research. And that's when I started writing the book, in less of a conspiratorial research angle, but more of a comedy angle. So it's a comedic journey out of hip-hop hypnosis. I also recorded a 9.5 audiobook, and I voice act all the characters. So I'm number one right now in absurdist fiction because the book's absurd, but it's very funny. Seth enjoyed it. Seth read the whole thing, the new version, the comedic journey. And so he enjoyed it. And I hope a lot of people enjoy it. But there's a very deep meaning, and that's to snap people out of hip hop hypnosis through humor.
Yeah. And you're getting some high praise from some prominent figures, right? In the truther awakening sphere, right? You're getting some 5-star reviews from some 5-star people too.
Our first 5-star review was from Seth here. So Seth, did you enjoy the book? What did you think about it?
Dude, the book is hilarious. I really enjoyed our conversation. If anyone wants to listen to that and dive deeper, find the School of Unlearning YouTube channel. The show's called Hip-Hop, Hypnosis, and Musical Mind Control with Alfonso. And man, the book is hilarious. And I think that is the way to snap out of any type of hypnosis is through laughter, because laughter is so similar to crying. It's a heaving of the heart in rhythm. And when we squeeze that heart in rhythm, we can process emotions, and laughing is just a way to sort of get something off your chest. And so reading the book, you look at how absurd the culture of mainstream hip hop really is. And, you know, you can snap out of it pretty quickly if you're dying laughing. So I encourage everyone to go check out the Sharter. You know, you can read it on your computer, EPUB, audiobook, hardcover if you're a badass. But dude, I really enjoyed the book, and I'm glad you put it in that format rather than research papers. Because if you did that, you'd only reach the conspiracy guys who love to read about that stuff. But having it in a comedic novel, really, it can reach anyone. I actually sent it to my friend who, like you, Al, is a Virgo. He's also the funniest guy I know. And he also got me into hip hop. So we went to summer camp back in the day. And while I was listening to, you know, Green Day and Blink-182, he was listening to Wu-Tang and Nas. And I always hated it. I always gave him a hard time about it, but it grew on me over time, because over time it would remind me of my friend Charlie. And I eventually really got into Wu-Tang and Nas, and, you know, from that deeper into different threads of the hip hop world. But just laugh at it, man. I'm getting ready to laugh tonight. I'm stoked for the stream. I got some other gravy to bring in other parts of the musical conspiracy rabbit hole. You know, I'm a musician primarily. Right now, I have a book on fruit, and I farm and I teach and I do, you know, health stuff. But I'm really a musician at heart. So this is a topic that's very close to my heart, and I think we're gonna ladle some gravy. So I hope you guys are hungry.
Shall ya? Vegan gravy only tonight, okay? Just piping hot, okay? It's not raw gravy, but so, guys, not only are we going to be diving into the Sharter and kind of, you know, Al's approach to decoding hip-hop hypnosis, right? First off, recognizing it, right? Second, kind of recognizing the patterns, recognizing the hierarchy, recognizing the top-down structure. You know, where's the money coming from? Where's all this influence coming from, right? Why'd MTV go from pushing hair bands, punk hair bands, then boom, hip hop, right? So we're not only going to be talking about that in the Sharter, we're going to get into kind of how this all ties in to what's going on right now. We've got probably one of the biggest news stories in the world for the last 6 months or so is Diddy, right? Formerly known as Puff Daddy. I didn't even know who Diddy was until all this happened. I'm like, Diddy? I thought this was Puff Daddy, right? We're going to talk about Diddy because a couple weeks ago we were doing a stream here, me and Juan, and we realized while talking about Dexter and some of the opening scenes to Dexter, how the port of Miami is highlighted in the Dexter show about human trafficking, right? In the evergreen shipping container conspiracy. We were kind of just scratching the surface of that. And I was like, hang on, this is Star Island. Star Island is right next to the port of Miami. I mean, you can't get closer. All the shipping containers coming in to like the southernmost tip of Florida are going right into that Bay of Miami, or sorry,
Biscayne Bay,
Biscayne Bay. Yeah.
which is old world, by the way. Those islands, if you look at Google Maps, Google Star Island, you know, the Venetian Isles, they're these perfect oval islands, and there's no pictures of them being built, even though they claim that Star Island was built in 1922, rather completed in 1922. They never say constructed. You know, they always say founded or completed or whatever, or opened. So it's old world, those islands. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. And then, well, just real quick here.
Yep.
Just so people can get a understanding, the port of Miami, which has a lot of these evergreen shipping containers coming in, allegedly having to do with human trafficking, if not worse. That kind of conspiracy theory, before it became a big conspiracy theory, was part of the plot of Dexter. So if you ever watch Dexter, you can see this for yourself, kind of an outline of the evergreen shipping container conspiracy. And if this involves, you know, trafficked, underaged people, it's definitely worth noting that P. Diddy, his house could not be closer to this kind of point of entry for all these shipping containers. If one were looking to kind of offload black market goods or people, that's where you'd probably want to live, right? You could really just take a boat right to your house, right to your backyard. But that's kind of what sparked not only the re-release of the Sharter, but us talking about that a couple of weeks ago. I really want to do that justice. I don't think anyone's talking about that on YouTube. Is the Star Island. You know, why did Diddy live where he did? So Diddy, Star Island, and the gangster rap agenda. That's what we're going to be talking about. What's up, Alan?
So it's interesting when you say port, I automatically think portal. And then you say Star Island, I'm thinking, wow, there's some weird alchemy going on here. But when you mentioned Puff Daddy or Diddy, formerly Puff Daddy, I thought, wow, his real name should be Poof Daddy, because he's kind of a poof, as we found out. But other than that, it's interesting because his first big hit, his first big act was Biggie Smalls, the Notorious B.I.G., right? And their first hit was called Hypnotize. So it's been hypnosis from the beginning, man. So there's a lot. It's deeper than rap, as Rick Ross would say. You know, and he has a song called Port of Miami. So
and what's up with all these E's? Diddy, Easy, Easy E. What happens if we tag an E onto the name rap? Right? What's with all these E's going around? Rap plus E equals what? Crime. And rap is certainly music that indirectly promotes, I hate to say it, but R-word culture. I'm not a big believer in R-word culture in the general sense. But if there is such a thing, rap is the culprit. Rap music is the prime
Longo,
culprit. What's
your take on the word gangster?
Well, it's a tough one. But I guess if we're gonna, put on our Kabbalah glasses here for a second, kind of cut the word up a little bit. I noticed earlier today that if we break down the word gangster, and everyone, I hope you're limber on this one. We're gonna be stretching a little bit. Okay, this is a stretch of a stretch. Gangster, gay, and jester. Are all rappers or gangster rappers gay jesters? I don't know. Maybe it's in the name. Maybe it's not. But
well, and the E. Sorry to interrupt. Did you want to finish that?
No, that's it. That's it.
E is a diminutive, so it makes things smaller, and it also kind of feminizes things. So there's this, and every rapper's Lil, so it's all this diminishing and this feminization. We see a lot of feminization in the pop music and rap game, feminist agenda, different gender ideologies coming out, but it's a diminutive. And just look at the name. I mean, P Diddy.
Yeah.
P Diddle. Like, come on.
Did he do it?
Yeah.
It's obvious. It's overt.
And also shout out to Candace Owens for kind of blowing the lid off this recently too, is almost all of the early rappers were Cuomo-sexual or Biden-sexual. Okay. Either, played the other side of the team or played the same team, or played for both teams, right? That's very, very common in the early rap. For example, how'd Easy, what's his face, died of AIDS? How'd that dude get AIDS? From a chick with AIDS? I don't know about that. But Tupac, there's very incriminating videos of Tupac when he's like 17, where the dude is flaming. And that's coming from me, folks, okay? This dude, it was flaming at like 17. The gangster culture, it's kind of like a flipped hyper feminine culture, believe it or not. It's hyper feminine. Sagging the pants is just one component to this. Let's look at the background here tonight.
Yeah. So I think that guys like Da Baby and Lil Baby would fit your definition of gangster quite well.
Yes.
Longo, take off the map so we can see the meme. There we
Yeah.
go.
Thank you. Can't
That
see it
looks
all
like
the
Da
way.
Baby. Yeah.
But excuse me, sir, but your root chakra is hanging out. What's with the sagging? We can just
Yeah.
start off with that. What's with the sagging?
It's exposing in the port.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it came from prison where guys are trying to signal to other guys like, hey, I'm open for business, essentially, is what they're saying.
That's interesting because I've heard it that it's kind of like yeah, look at that, but you can't have it, son, because I'm a real G. So look at it all you want, but you ain't gonna take this. Almost like flaunting it in a really weird kind of. I don't know, like they're baiting each other into. I don't know, why do they all want their asses out if not to all see them? Look at each other.
It looks
I mean,
absurd.
it's
Like, have you
bizarre.
ever seen it when they like fall over and stuff? It's like, it's very jester like. It could not be any more jester like. So
Yeah.
it's insane. It's literally insane,
We also know what sagging spells backwards. So if you're into kind of spelling and being spellbound by, words like that, that would be one to look out for. Sagging. Spell backwards, it's something else. Sagging, right? But, and also if you just throw a G on there, throw the G at the end. I'm a G, beep. You're sagging. That's, say it both ways, sagging. But it's a root chakra. It's like a declaration of root chakra lifestyle is how I'd say it. So that, yes, we can look at the how is like, oh, that's a prison thing. Or the how is, oh, they don't like belts because, I don't know. But the why that comes up, from the heavens or down below from hell, the why, I think that this is a root chakra energy. Like, look at a king. The king wants you to look at his pineal gland or his crown chakra. Look up here, look up here. All the high society. Look at my hat. Look at my hat. What's with the gangster rap? Look at my shoes. Look at the shoes. Look down here, man. Look at my ass hanging out.
It's
and
very
yeah,
base.
they do have hats too. I'll give them that. But they really, what I'm trying to point out here is like, a king emphasizes the higher chakras, if you believe in this stuff. The gangsters, they want everyone to look at their root chakra or their shoes, the lower nature, right? It's also like kind of like pan, like being naked from the waist down, or in a sense, I don't know. There's like a pan element to it too, but pants,
You're on point.
Pants,
You're on point. Alan and I went into this on our show, how drums are material in nature. They call upon the earthly material energy because drums are percussive, and percussive sounds are transient. meaning they're very short and they end. All material things end, but divine things, they sustain. So the vowels and the wind sounds and the sustaining sounds, those summon and call upon divine energy, whereas the boom bap really anchors you into the earthly, lower dimensional root energy. And you're totally right. It's all about the streets and the shoes and sort of staying bound to these material things. If you look at the pants a lot of the gangsters wear, they have like the words money embroidered on them. Like, I don't know. I just noticed a lot of the style that a lot of my friends in New Orleans would wear. And on the pants, it'd be like hustle, money, get the bag. Like, it was all just very material nature. And then the distressed jeans, they'd spend a lot of money on shoes and distressed pants that just like, and then they'd complain that they had no money.
Yeah. So when I think of like the root chakra and sort of these percussion instruments, I think of war drums. And it's interesting how drill music, which is specific to violence, specific to hyper localized regional violence against this group and that group in the same city, it taps into a tribal war instinct via these percussion instruments, right? They're literally war drums, in that it's promoted and it's kind of a controlled conflict almost, in a way.
Yeah. We got a tip here from Chungus 500, my brother, 199. My 3 favorite hobos. Hell yeah. Thanks for that. But howdy. Sorry, there's someone at the door. But what were we saying, Alan?
I was talking about sort of how the war drums combined with specific lyrics sort of work to hyper instigate localized tribal warfare. So a lot of times that these guys with these big rap videos are just gangsters, gang members who happen to make a rap video to taunt their rival gang. And it just happens to blow up. They might make a few million hits, right? A few million views on YouTube. Oh, this guy's a rapper. But in reality, it's just a side effect of this sort of hyper-local regional tribal warfare. And the music is oftentimes just sort of a symptom or just sort of a result of that, right? But it's also promoted. Like, there are things you can't say or do on YouTube, right? But the most violent, drug-promoting, ridiculous rap music is heavily promoted. And then from there, you have to ask yourself, why is that? Is it a form of social engineering?
100%.
Yeah. Remember when we went into like the potential ancient Floridian origins of gangster rap call out music? The Timucua Indians in Florida, sometimes they were depicted looking like Kodak Black, no joke, like with gold teeth and everything. Very dark black. So do with that what you will.
Yeah,
this image right here is the Timucua Indians. When they used to go hit a lick on a rival tribe, they would come back home and they'd beat on these drums and like pretty much rap about their victory, how many dudes they killed, right? So this is tribal to the core. I mean, you don't need electronics for this kind of behavior to come out, right? You don't need guns for this behavior to come out. This is kind of, it's tribal, it's primal, it's deep within a lot of groups of people, probably, maybe everyone, maybe only certain races. I don't know, but yeah. So the Timucua Indians, they lived in Florida, and we brought this up because the exact tribal territory that the Timucua Indians used to live in, that's where a lot of this Jacksonville rap is coming out of. And Jacksonville rap is particularly violent, right? Isn't that true?
Absolutely. Jacksonville also has a 70% unsolved murder rate. Oof. So what happened this time last year when Longo and I did a show, there was a rapper out of Jacksonville who looks just like these guys, just like Kodak Black. He goes by the name Julio Fulio. Now, Julio Fulio was in a notorious beef with a guy named Young and Ace, also out of Jacksonville. And there was a situation where these guys are trading diss tracks back and forth, but they're naming specific murders. They're naming specific rival ops that were killed. And so this guy has a hit diss song on YouTube, millions of hits. I think Young and Ace started it off with a cover of a Michelle Branch song where he's naming specific hits, specific people, and it's promoted on YouTube. Awesome. So cool. Right. And then from there, Julio Fulio, right, he responds back with some other R&B cover. It's a hit, though. It's a hit song. Both of them are hits. I don't deny that. Catchy, interesting, entertaining, dark humor, very dark. But he returns with a diss. What happened to Julio Fulio? Shot and killed. Done. You know, he got, as they say in Grand Theft Auto, what do they call it? Eliminated. Done. So that happened rather publicly. And what's interesting about a beef like that with Julio and Young and Ace, it enters the spiritual realm where they know not what they do. A lot of times, these guys within drill culture will literally call themselves demons. They're like, oh, I'm on demon time. Oh, that guy, he's a real demon. I tend to believe them.
Yeah. If it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, tells you it's a duck, it's probably a duck, you know. But this is one of those Temecula Indians we were talking about earlier. And this is one of the most famous depictions of them. This is coming out of Germany, believe it or
Dresden. Yep.
Yeah. And this is like a master jeweler, goldsmith, you know, craftsman of fine little things like this, statues. And they call this the Moor with the Emerald Cluster. Now, they say it's a Temecula Indian chief, but the Germans in those days were calling them Moors, not Native Americans, Moors. And to them, that's a blackamoor, a black person. So, you know, I've done videos on that. There's a whole Moorish community that kind of explains that backstory a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little ridiculous, you know, some of their rabbit holes, but kind of the core of that is a pre-Columbian Moorish presence in the Americas that we're not really told about. A hidden empire, maybe a hidden presence in the Americas. Maybe they mixed in with the Native Americans. Maybe they were the Native Americans. Lots of different theories, but all that's important right now is why were they depicted as black dudes with sometimes gold teeth and all this bling? Where did the gangster culture get the bling from? You know, I don't know how many Africans I've seen decked out like that. But the native Floridian chiefs 500 years ago or so, they were decked out, and that guy looks like Flava Flav with the big old clock on his, you know.
Dude, that statue isn't a little figurine too. That's 25 inches tall, that thing. So you can imagine that's pretty sizable. And imagine how big are those emerald clusters? That statue was found in the Green Vault in Dresden. I have a whole book on it. It's amazing what they found in this Green Vault. All these jewels and all these insane works of art, man. Like, look at the cups they were using in the 1500s. And now we're using styrofoam cups and solo cups. And they had this 500 years ago. You know, this is just one little page. This book is insane. I think you can find it online, but I found it at a thrift store, the Green Vault. Yeah, these are some of the amazing, decked out, bedazzled chalices that they were drinking out of 500 years ago, you know? I absolutely love this book. There's so much cool stuff. There's so much cool stuff they found in Dresden. And Dresden was bombed to hell, you know, during World War II, I think.
Oh, I know all about Dresden. Okay. Yeah.
But really interesting stuff.
So yeah, this is interesting, you know, because this guy does look like Kodak Black. He does look like Julio Fulio, and we see them today mimicking the same exact behavior. So there's a thread here between modern hip hop culture and this sort of black native culture that has been essentially erased from our history. But
They
if
was
we want-
Chiefs.
Yeah, they was Chiefs. But I mean, in terms of like native Florida rappers, who do you think are the greatest ever, Longo?
Fred Durst, hands down.
Fact.
Wears a red hat as an homage to the ancient Moorish Empire. Who knows?
It's just
Okay.
one of those days.
You guys ever see this? The guy who makes like spoof new metal music,
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
dude, hilarious. He like
So funny.
performs it live, hilarious.
What do you
Yeah.
call it? Yeah, I know. That guy's funny. But yeah, who do you think is number 2?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know the black ones too much.
Okay.
But I know Kodak Black
Mm-hmm.
is a Florida guy.
Yeah.
I kind of know.
I got a different number 1 than you,
That's,
believe it
that's
or
all
not.
I know. That's all
Okay.
I know. Honestly.
So number 1 for me is a Florida guy. Goes by the name of Rob Van Winkle, I believe, but his real name is Vanilla Ice. Probably the greatest to ever do it.
True. Lake Worth
Yeah.
native. My
Okay.
town. The town I'm in right now. Vanilla Ice is from. He still lives here to this day. You know who else is from my town? Ghost Maine. Super not good. He's not good. He sucks.
You know who else is from
It's like
your
a little
town? Bad Baby, right? Isn't she from your town?
Yeah, she is.
Legend.
Wait, and
Bah-
Limp
bah-
Bizkit's from Florida.
Bad Baby, who is part Jewish, also interestingly has the H's in her names. Like, I don't know if that's a Moorish thing or I'm reaching there, but why does she go by Bahad Bahbi? Bad Baby with the H's. Bahad Bahbi. You know, it's like
It's kind of
all
like bar
air.
mitzvah, how they spell it.
Yeah, it could be Hebrew. Could be
Mhm.
a Hebrew thing, but I know that Puya. I don't really like him anymore, but I used to like Puya. He's like a white boy rapper. I know he's a Florida guy.
You got a lot.
Denzel Curry is just south of me. XXX Tentaciones, Broward County guy. And there's a whole bunch I don't really know. I don't really listen to him. But Flo Rida is a Boca guy, Boca Raton guy.
Florida.
Exactly. He beat us to it. I would have taken it if he didn't get to that. Flo Rida. Does it get any better than that for rap names? Flo Rida. Come on. But yeah, Danielle Bergoli, she's top notch. I actually like her stuff.
She's actually good. I like her stuff too. She
Yeah.
has bangers. She's got a few bangers. I can't deny it. I just can't deny a good banger, you know?
Yeah. She's
Whether
got
it's
that-
pop, rock, whatever the case may be. Alanis Morissette, I don't
Well,
care.
dude,
Banger's a
some of the
banger.
best rock and pop bands, and sort of I grew up on ska and punk. A lot of the best top bands from all those genres were from Florida.
Really?
Yeah, well, Limp Bizkit and Marilyn Manson, you know, they were kind of like in the metal rock of the
Yeah.
late '90s and everything. Creed, people hate Creed, but
Creed,
you know,
yep.
they're pretty
Creed.
rad.
Creed
Dude.
is sick.
Um,
So sick. I
Yeah.
love Creed.
If you're talking about some of the ska and the punks like Less Than Jake, Newfound Glory, Yellow Card, they were all like some of the best of those Against Me. I liked the old Against Me before Tom became Laura. But Matchbox 20, Allman Brothers, Tom Petty, and then
Yes.
of course NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. We can get into that. That's a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah. The Outlaws, the Florida Guitar Army. So all these bands, guys, you won't believe it. Most of Leonard Skinner, it was from Florida, if I'm not mistaken. So Sweet Home Alabama, sellouts, it's actually Sweet Home Florida, La Florida. Okay. They sold out. They wanted to be more country. They couldn't have it be Florida. I don't know which one's from Florida, but most of the bands from Florida. So you got the Outlaws. They're way better than Leonard Skinner. Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers from Florida. Game over. Florida is the South. Florida is Southern rock. I mean, that's like Florida Georgia Line. Was that a Mossad Jesuit psyop to derail the Garden of Eden in Florida conversation? Nice try, but it's not slowing me down one bit. Florida Georgia Line, they're on a breakup right now. Do you guys know that Florida Georgia Line broke up over COVID and like right wing conspiracy theories.
Good.
That's biblical in a sense. That's
Yeah,
righteous. I love it.
exactly.
Because the Florida Georgia line is where the gopher wood grows.
Yep.
Correct. That's so
Yep.
huge, man. And the gopher wood is mentioned specifically in the Old Testament,
Yep.
right? Genesis, right?
Yep.
Can't ignore that.
One of the Florida Georgia state line guys was hardcore Biden, pro-vax, pro-microchip, anti-climate change, just full art-hard. But doing like a cowboy shtick, like a cowboy grift, right? The other one's a little bit, I guess, more actually conservative. He's like full QAnon, like full anti, like save the children, you know, those days.
So
And
they had some serious arguments. Like they went at it.
Yeah. And that's what broke them up. So
Mhm.
shout out Florida Georgia line. They're like the rap country. For anyone who doesn't know, they're like the rap, like I guess the #1 rap country guys. But
And that's a huge crossover that is part of the social engineering. You know, that's one of my
Yes.
favorite topics is like social engineering through music and sound and pop culture. And, you know, country meets rap. You can't talk about that without mentioning Lil Nas X, which is like super satanic. Remember, he had the blood in the shoe and everything like that.
yeah.
And he was sort of the first one to bring to have like a trap country song. I don't know if he was the first one, but it was the first big mainstream one. And then,
With-
I mean, just the last thing on that is sort of like the gay agenda with Lil Nas X. He was really pushing that hard. Yeah.
They all do. Lil Uzi Vert said really quick, Lil Lucifer. Say it real quick, guys. Start playing around with these rapper names. Oh yeah, that's just no. He's just little. He likes to use an Uzi and he's vertically challenged. Lil Uzi Vert. Things can have double meanings, guys. And honestly, magical spell words like that are more potent the more meanings you can weave into them. Right?
Yeah.
So Lil Uzi Vert. There's a whole bunch more like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
I got a
Lil.
few for you.
Well,
Go
just
ahead, Seth.
the word Lil looks to me like King Solomon's temple with the twin pillars on either side. L,
Okay.
and then the I,
Yeah.
which is the inner sanctum, and then the other L is the twin pillars of Joaquin and Boaz. There's so much Freemasonic, checkerboard stuff too. So I don't know if that Lil is purposefully summoning any type of Freemasonic stuff, but if you want to stretch, it's there.
So I got a few for you, Longo. The funniest one to me, and it's so ridiculous, is a woman, hugely popular female rapper. She goes by Meg the Stallion. And every time I see her name in these stupid fucking people, I say, hey, stallion, when you look it up in the dictionary, it means male breeding horse. So this woman calls herself a male breeding horse. And I'm just like, how dumb is this? And another woman, another hugely popular female rapper, calls herself Glorilla. Glow plus gorilla. Okay. Real creative, right? And she's just calling herself a gorilla. So your two most popular female rappers are a male breeding horse and a gorilla. Like, I can't participate in this. It's so dumb,
Yeah. Also, Birdman, maybe a stretch, but him kissing dudes. Birds kind of go mouth to mouth pretty often. I don't know, maybe a stretch, but maybe likes to spit in dudes' mouths. Birdman. I also know. Fuck, I just had another one.
On names, rappers,
Yeah,
women, potentially Birdman, Lil Wayne, Little Xan. His fucking name was
Diddy.
Okay.
Puff Daddy. Why is he changing his name all the time? Why is he changing Puff Daddy? What's puff mean? It can mean poof, like Alan said earlier.
It can also mean.
Does it?
Well, if you're puffing
puffer.
on something, yeah.
Ah, okay. Puff, right. Okay, puff, like puffer fish. But also, powder puff, swapping gender roles. Powder puff, right? Like the powder puff girls, but like in high school growing up, like, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they used to do powder puff games, which is where the men are the cheerleaders and the women play the football. And they still do that, to this day in high school. But they used to take it really seriously. I don't know, maybe a gender thing. And then daddy. It's like you're like a daddy to kids. Dads have kids, right? Puff Daddy, Diddy, the Diddler. Who knows, right?
Yeah, he was a mentor to Justin Bieber. You know what I mean?
And Usher. I think he did that to Usher too before. And then Usher. Yeah.
Yeah, Usher lived with him when he was 14. That's got to be insane. But it's so infantilizing, right? How are you, these people that are under a state of hip hop hypnosis, right? You're looking up to a guy named Da Baby. How are you listening to a man called Da Baby? How are you listening to a man called Lil Baby? How are you doing this? The only way is because they're literally in a state of hypnosis. They hear these rhythms, and the rhythm creates a frequency, and it becomes normalized in their mind. And we're talking about millions and millions and millions of people, like all around the world. So
yeah. Also, like Seth was talking about, they are hip hop hypnotizing country music before our eyes. Country music is literally pop rap now. Almost every song has the boom, 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 claps and snaps. It's not the acoustic guitar based music it was before. It's all got the clap and the stomp and like the 808.
And that's slow tempo too.
Yeah.
Like rap nowadays is like 80 BPM. It's like it's like super slow. Whereas in the 90s, it was all like it was all just a faster tempo. So I think there's something to that too. When you slow down the tempo, like it further drags us into this hypnotic, drug fueled hypnosis, really. So we got to snap out of that.
Yeah.
Stop listening to pop music, y'all.
It's interesting. Organic country is so beautiful, right? That old country Western, that real stuff. And it's like the thing that sucks about country and puts it on par with rap music, if not makes it worse, is the fact that alcohol is promoted heavily in every single song. You won't hear a country song without a specific beer they're marketing or just straight up whiskey.
Yep. Super big on breakup culture too. Super big on like, yeah, my bitch is a wild one. She breaks windows and chucks. That's how I like my bitches. I like them throwing cinder blocks through windows and keying my truck and, like causing some ruckus. Hell yeah. Or, I don't know. Worshipping like bitchy ass women, glorifying alcoholism, glorifying,
Big on heartbreak. Normalizing heartbreak.
Yep.
And I've seen people in my own personal life, they become huge country music fans. Guess what? They become alcoholics. I've seen it happen. It's crazy.
Yeah. Now, Alan, you brought this up earlier. We really got to touch on this. This comment says 28 is the number associated with Saturn. Now that's true, but it's only part of it. 28 is the number of Saturn's cycle. So Saturn has a roughly 28 year cycle. 29, 28, 29. That's Saturn's cycle. But the number of Saturn itself, there's another number that really does symbolize Saturn. And Alan, you brought it up earlier. It's the number 17. 17 is the double-digit representation of the planet Saturn. The same way that the planet Jupiter is represented by the number 21. So 21 is good luck. Jackpot, 777. That's Jupiter. That's jackpot. And that's heaven. That's glorious, right? 17. I haven't really dug too much into 17, but I know it's prime. It's kind of like sterile, you could say. But what that really comes down to is the astrological symbol for Jupiter. It's a 2 and a 1 pushed in together so that it looks like a 4. So the 2 and the 1 kind of get superimposed, and you get it looks like a 4. Well, when you do that with Saturn, the symbol for Saturn is 17. The symbol for Saturn is like an H. And you can get that H by taking the number 7. Let's do that. And 1, right? And putting it like that, you get an H. So why is 17 important? And why is it relevant to rap?
I'll tell you exactly why. And this is an anomalous coincidence, or is it? Because Lil Wayne, you guys can all Google this, Lil Wayne, Lil Pump, YNW Melly, and XXX Tentacion all have the number 17 tattooed on their face. So they have a Saturnian symbol tattooed on their face. All 4 of these guys. 3 out of 4 are from the state of Florida. Lil Wayne, get it as in waning moon, is from the Crescent City of New Orleans, is also a Libra. But the 17 on all of their faces could be potential slave branding. I don't know what else it could be because it's a little weird. Or it's the spiritual realm showing itself through these men who are Saturnian, obsessed with big watches, obsessed with the material, and the 17 is just a manifestation of that potentially.
Yeah. Also, what's a rapper? Oh shit, let me get that screen back. What's a rapper? A rapper is someone who raps, but let's take it kind of phonetically. A rapper is a shell. A rapper is like a husk, a container, right? Maybe even like a vessel that a demon can cloak itself in, right? These are demonic jester spirits, kind of cloaked in like a also foolish jester, like colorful. You see them with the Skittles in their teeth and the Skittles on their fucking face and all this shit happening. It's very jester-like and foolish, They make fools of themselves. Foolia, right? That's one of the guys' names.
Yeah.
And they're rappers. They're rappers. They're like, I don't know how to say that, how else to say that, but yeah.
Gravy alert. So if you look at the guy on the lower right, he goes by the name of YNW Melly. If you were to guess, what do you think his first and last name are? Longo, Seth, what do you guys think?
Oh, isn't it like Hail Satan or something? He's like, I'm a demon.
No, his name is literally Jamel Demons.
Yes.
You can look it up. His name is Jamel Demons. Jamel Demons is somebody who was subject to the Baker Act, which is rather specific to Florida. The Baker Act occurs when a young man is out of control and they basically 5150 them. They put him in a mental hospital. So he currently, YNW Melly, might be the first rapper, because Florida has the death penalty, to be sentenced to death because YNW Melly killed 2 of his friends, allegedly. Okay, literally shot them to death. He killed YNW Sack Chaser. He killed him. And pretty sure he killed YNW Juvie, members of his crew. And he ends up having a schizophrenic sort of split personality issue. And allegedly, he's on trial. He's having a retrial, but he could be the first rapper to face the death penalty. He notoriously had a split personality he would call Melvin. Melvin was the other guy you didn't want to mess with when you messed with YNW Melly too much. Melvin would come out. These are all things he's said publicly. So YNW Melly, aka Jamel Demons, could be the first rap artist to receive the death penalty in Florida.
It's wild. Wow. Dude, 17 is the 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. Ooh. And in Hebrew, Q is Qaf, which means the head, specifically the back of the head. And I don't know if there's any connections there, but I had to bring that up.
Let's see if you guys can see the number 17 in the symbol for Saturn. Do you see the 7? The 7's on the bottom right side. Here. These are all a little too curvy. But basically, if you slap a 7 onto a 1, you get an H. And 17 looks like an H. Looks like the symbol for Saturn.
And Saturn also rules the 28 or 29 or 30 year cycles, which I believe happen. It shows itself in culture. So pop culture will have these like resurgences 30 years later. It'll have a comeback and then it'll die out again. So we're actually 30 years past the golden age of hip hop, which was 1994 ish. You know what I mean? So I think this is a good timing for a little bit of a resurgence and then the last dying breaths of hip hop hypnosis. I think we can leave this era in a better state than we entered it, in a better state than the 90s showed us. But
yeah, I'm always hopeful because I remember, you know, what were our parents or like grandparents thinking when hair metal came out? Like Motley Crue. I don't know. Motley Crue is kind of, it's on par with the gangster rap culture. Not as violent, you know, I don't think, but the fact that they really were getting dudes to dress up like chicks, the fact that it's just like this street lifestyle, motorcycles, grease, you know, just fucking promiscuity, lipstick on dudes, you name it. Okay, like Babylon, right? Sodom and Gomorrah music. And they're like screaming like chicks, they sound like chicks, right? They're some of the first people that kind of like use the drop tunings in the mainstream. But those bands, our grandparents probably thought that shit was never going to go away. They're like, oh my God, the world's fucking over. Everyone's going to turn into Vince Neil, right? Every man's going to turn into Vince Neil. And it kind of went away. You know, grunge kind of cured the world from that. It was a little bit more holistic, authentic. That, of course, became very commercialized too. Then we get the punk culture, or kind of the second wave of the punk culture, right? 90s punk culture, like the Green Day and stuff. Black Flag, Green Day, all that stuff. But
and it's more program degeneracy. I think they push out program degeneracy and hyperfeminization in all music, I think. Even if punk seems like, oh no, that's manly, you know, they're like, if it is feminine when you get the eye makeup and the lots of tattoos and just the drug use. I think drug use is tremendously pushed in pop music and all sorts of music, punk, hip hop, the hair metal, the country. It doesn't matter because they'll use any of these genres to push out programmed degeneracy.
What about one thing about punk though? Punk's really interesting because it kind of is the rap for white guys, right? It kind of was the rap. I don't know. Punk is like 1975, right? 72.
Yeah, it started in the 70s, late 70s. I think the year of punk was like 77, summer of punk. And then when did rap really like take
off?
80s with Run DMC 80s. And then like De La Soul in like the late 80s, but Run DMC and this is a side note, this isn't as deep, but they're advertising things. Everything's an ad in music, whether it's Xanax or in Run DMC's case it was Adidas. And then there's a lot of drops of commercial brand name items in music too, and that's just one other way they program us. They just advertise to us. I can think of one great example. There was a song called Cadillac by the band Mest. It was like a pop punk hit. It was all over the radio. Came out in the early 2000s, and that was part of an ad campaign from Cadillac. Cadillac had a resurgence in the early 2000s. They put the cars in the second Matrix movie, which I think was 03. But anyways, this Cadillac song came out in 01. And if you just Google, did Cadillac ever make a comeback? It says yes, early 2000s. So, and Mest was a band that got all this heat for not coming up as a core punk band. So to me, it seems like they were a little bit manufactured and definitely were just used to push out advertisement.
Yeah, I think there's a direct parallel with sort of this hair metal in the sense that former fans, can't believe they ever thought that shit was cool, right? Like, so I look back on a lot of the rap I used to listen to. I'm still susceptible to a banger here and there, a good song. It's like, I can't deny it. But looking back, it's like, wow, I can't believe that was cool. Kind of like the hair metal fans look back and like, we thought that was cool. You know what I mean? So yeah, rap from the beginning has been an advertisement with My Adidas by Run DMC from the very beginning. But yeah, ultimately though, the big conclusion I come to with all this social engineering through music is the reason for it is because music is the most powerful magic, for better or for worse, in the realm, in my opinion. Because unlike film, music has the ability to travel throughout your entire neighborhood, versus something on the screen doesn't quite have that ability. What do you guys think about that?
100%. Yeah, and all these musicians, regardless of genre, some of the people who get the farthest are the ones who flirt with ceremonial magic, who flirt with the occult. There's even a picture. I remember when Kodak Black was just like a Florida celebrity, wasn't as kind of well known as he is now, like, I don't know, 2016 or something. He had a picture on his Instagram that all my friends were sending me, where he was like reading the Talmud in like the Kybalion, and like
He definitely wasn't reading them. He just probably took a
Solomon,
picture.
right? You're right. Yeah, good point. But he had them. He had them. He had them in his like hotel room. He was reading like Solomonic magic
Mhm.
stuff. He had them. So maybe
Yeah.
whether that was his like producer or his handler, giving him that stuff, or maybe it was just a photo op. But there's something
I
to
always,
that. And
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
too. That's it.
I always think of the book of Matthew and how it relates to this metaphorical selling of the soul. I don't interpret it as literal, right? I don't think there's a back room with, oh, there's Satan over there. He works here on Fridays. Just go there. You can sell your soul. We'll give you the contract. I think it's more of a situation where an artist who will do anything, as we've seen with a lot of these guys and a lot of this public information that's coming out, whether it's somebody like Diddy, whether you'll go to the Diddy party and get compromised in some way, or you'll literally just do anything in order to make it. It reminds me of the book of Matthew, where Satan offers the world to Jesus, and he says, no thanks, pal. I answer to a higher power. But a lot of humans here on earth seeking that worldly dominion, right, of fame and fortune, sort of metaphorically sell their soul in the process. What do you guys think about that?
Mhm.
Yeah, think about the classic story of Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil for the ability to play guitar. And that's like, he's like the most famous blues guy ever from the Gulf of Mexico. And you just see that constantly. I think your soul is your originality. So when someone gets you to sign a contract to do whatever they say, and you're now a mouthpiece for the establishment or for the industry, you've sold your soul. You've sold your originality. You're now playing for someone else's team. So it's a tough thing for a musician who all he wants to do is make it, he or she. All they want to do is support themselves with their art. And when someone offers you a huge contract, it may seem appealing, but at the end of the day, it's a binding legal contract, and you don't know exactly what you're being used for.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think, like Alan was saying, it can just be a internal struggle, the internal, not living up to your principles. In your own life, you will be offered, times where if you choose the less virtuous path, you'll get rewarded. It'll be more of like a candy reward than a salad, right? Everyone wants candy in the short term, right? A Rolex, hot ass girlfriend, hot ass bitch who's also a hoe. Like that's another thing. Even the straightest of the straight rappers are like banging the same 5 chicks that every other rapper is banging. What is up with that? Okay, we'll put that to the side for now. But to Alan's point, there doesn't need to be the big, Brazilian executive with the contract saying sign here. It can be fully internal. You can sacrifice someone in your own life by not giving them the attention they needed and going and pursuing your career instead. That's a sacrifice to me. Like, my mom was on life support. This is hypothetical. My mom's on life support. My first show is that same night. Well, fuck, Mom, I gotta get that money. I gotta get that bread. How many rappers are put into positions like that? That's the spark. That's the selling of your soul. The first kind of things leading you down that path. But also to Seth's point, I do think there are those big time deals where, well, Seth, I think you were adding on rightfully to what Alan said, that when Robert went out to that crossroads, there wasn't a dude in an office, a music executive, with the thing saying sign here. That was just him. Whether you believe in the story or not, he summoned the devil. It was his own pursuit. He didn't need a business handler, executive to set up that deal for him. But I would also add that those kind of deals do happen too. Like, there are those backroom deals, the Diddy deals. What's the Diddy stuff all about? Just gratification? No, it's blackmail, and worse. It's communal sin, right? It's shared sin offerings, like an offering of sin, not an offering for sin, right? It's like Rasputin, right? Imagine these oil parties, right? Dudes on dudes, chicks on chicks. Everyone's a celebrity. Everyone's like, that sounds like Rasputin. Rasputin would get, and I'm kind of, I'm not fully anti-Rasputin, but that's the power Rasputin had over people. He could get, all of the wives of like the leadership to just engage in this insanely devious, incriminating behavior in, bath parties, right? Diddy parties, not much different. The Epstein parties, same thing. So Rasputin had that kind of effect on people, where he could get people to betray their values, right? And whether that's drugging, however Diddy did it, that is kind of the goal for the person in charge. It's a ritual of sorts, right? But
Definitely. Yeah, man. It's interesting because when I think about the Diddy situation, the Epstein situation, I think of a few things. I think of the oldest profession, prostitution. But what's the second oldest profession? Espionage.
Pimpin'.
Well,
Pimpin'.
okay, that's could be there. Well, somebody's got to sell
just
this. So yeah, Pippin's part of it, but espionage would be the second oldest. So when you combine a prostitution espionage situation, you have leverage. And to add to your point about Mr. Johnson at the crossroads, he walked there. You know what I mean? These people at the Diddy parties, they went there. They probably had a good time. They probably more than willingly, in some cases, became compromised. Right?
Yeah. I love how people are like, nah, Jamie Foxx is cool, man. He left early, bro. Nah, Samuel L. Jackson's cool, man. He left early, bro. He's good in my book.
Yeah. It's like, even if you left early, hypothetically, let's say you're telling the truth, you still participated. All of these things require the participation of others. And yeah, it's really about leverage. Because the people attending those parties, they want connects. They want the pictures taken. They want to get in an Instagram photo. They want these things, and there's a cost to it. Diddy might boil you, and you don't know what happens after that because you got drugged, and it sucks. And now you signed a contract with Bad Boy Records, and now you have to dance around the country. You know what I mean? So it's quite the crossroads, it seems.
Yeah. Oof. Also, we were talking about punk a little bit before. What's a big commonality between punk and rap? Punk, believe it or not, guys, many of the most prominent punk stars were, let's just say, Brazilian. Okay? You guys know that? Many early punk families punk stars came from Zionist families, right?
Like who?
The Ramones.
That's who I was thinking off the bat.
The CBGB, also Bad Brains. They're all Brazilian as well. You
mean, you sure?
Who's Who's
They're like Jamaican
Fat?
dudes.
Yeah, I'm wrong. Who's Fat Mike? Who's what band?
Oh, that's NoFX.
No effects. Okay, no effects. Thank
There's
you.
two Hebes in that band. They got an album called White Trash, Two Hebes and a
Yeah.
Bean. Because
And there's
the
a
bean
lot
was
more.
Mexican. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot more than that. I don't know punk too well, but I know a quick search will exonerate me on that one. I swear. Okay.
Dude, I
People.
loved, and sort of still do, No Effects. They were like one of my favorite bands growing up. I loved their razor sharp and razor tight, fast drum beats and the amazing bass. Like Fat Mike's an amazing bass player, but his lifestyle is disgusting. I've heard some interviews with him lately. He's a cuck. He just promotes all this.
Yeah, punk rock
nasty
loves
stuff, dude.
cucks. Punk rock is big on cucking and like LGBT and like beating up Nazis and like, yeah, standing up to the conservatives, you know. That's the punk thing, that people got punked. We got punked, okay? We all got punked by the punk rock. I loved Green Day. I was a diehard Dookie, Dookie. Millions of people are like, I love Dookie. You like Dookie? Like, okay, jokes on us. But American idiot. Yeah, I'm an American idiot. Yeah, America's so dumb. Yeah, aren't we all so cool and intellectual by criticizing America, hating, the West, just complaining, whine, fucking eyeliner and more whining. That's what it all turned into, it seems like, right? Cuck culture to the max. Cucking your nation, cucking your own woman. But isn't it interesting that I don't think there's a Christians in punk rock Wikipedia, right? This is kind of a common theme.
One of my other favorite punk bands was anti-Christian. They're Bad Religion. Bad Religion was one of the top punk bands, one of my favorites of all time. I could sing almost all their songs. And they really programmed this materialist. They even have a song called Materialist. You know what I mean? And the lead singer was like a biology, science guy, very liberal, very material based atheist. And that's what they programmed a lot of our generation to be, is to be atheist. And so you can't prove God doesn't exist. And they were called Bad Religion. Their logo was a cross crossed out with a big red cross out of it. And so I'm now snapping out of, some of the punk hypnosis and some of the anti-Christian hypnosis that was definitely programmed in us.
Look at this guy, Steve Lieberman, also known as the Gangster Rabbi. Well, there you have it, folks. There's the crossover right there. Also, rapper, rabbi. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that.
I never got
Gangster
into
rabbi.
punk because it's so nihilistic, right? It's about destruction and like kind of.
Well, some of it is.
Like
if you look at the Sex Pistols, which they were completely fabricated, but that was all about just nihilism. The punk that I liked was about truth. It was about righteousness. I would play and go to these punk shows where they would have, they'd make zines. This is why I make zines today, is because the punk scene would make abolitionist zines and like prison abolition zines and kind of like freedom and pushing out information about freedom and human slavery and sort of righteousness and truth and calling out bullshit. That's really what the punk ethos is. But it's become so watered down in the mainstream that now most people think it's just nihilism, tattoos, fast and loud music, and drugs. But if you look at the modern punks, most of them, they all rolled over during 2021 when everyone was getting shot up and stuff. And I actually, in my next podcast, I interviewed John Joseph. He was the lead singer of the Cro-Mags. And he's one of the only guys that stood in the punk scene who stood strong and said, no, I'm not going to play shows if you require, your passport, your medical passport. So a lot of the so-called punks upheld apartheid 3 years ago, and it was disgusting. And I think punk sort of died. But like, to me, punk is truth, righteousness, and righteous anger, calling out bullshit. That's the true spirit of punk rock.
Also, the Beastie Boys, they're as Brazilian as it gets. They're like the New York Brazilian culture. Okay. They are the kind of
punk rap crossover, essentially. Yeah.
They are where punk and rap cross over. Now, what do we see a lot in rap? We don't necessarily see a lot of like Jewish rappers but we do see a lot of like Hebrew Israelite type rappers, and we do see a lot of Jewish managers in the rap game. That's like a big thing. Notably Eminem, right, has a long time handler who is Jazillion, and
It's a good book.
you see a lot of this. You know, Jay-Z is embedded with a lot of Jazillions and Orthodox Jazillions, but it's a big thing for these rappers to have rabbi handlers, or
That's definitely a thing for sure. But one thing I do like about punk, I gotta say, is the whole like there's like this sober punk, but they
Yes,
fight a lot.
straight
They fight a
edge.
lot.
Straight
They're
edge.
really into fighting. I like that. Like I like it. I wish they didn't beat people up, but I kind of like the vibe. You know what I mean? They're like really angry sober guys. I think
yeah.
it's kinda cool in a way.
Henry Rollins is, I believe, also Jewish. Believe it or not. So Henry Rollins.
So I think a common theme that comes up a lot with the whole music thing, right, is drugs. And this particular book is one of my all-time favorites. It's called Drugs as Weapons Against Us by John L. Potash. The CIA's murderous targeting of SDS, Panthers, Hendrix, Lennon, Cobain, Tupac, and other activists. So, but what's interesting about that, we know that drugs are basically advertised, whether it's in country music, whether it's in hip hop, whether it's in rock, and the sort of the dynamics, the system dynamics in place where the manager, well, you'll see it in a lot of these guys, especially guys like Cobain, Hendrix, definitely Hendrix, you know, Brian Jones. Oftentimes the manager is typically the handler, and the musician or the artist typically has a very serious addiction. And through that addiction, the manager can control them, the one who's giving them the drugs. It could be it's a huge power dynamic thing, right? And oftentimes it's the manager who might have some conflicted interest, so shall we say, with intelligence organizations, right? And the artist is oftentimes used as an advertisement vehicle for drugs. Cobain, for example, who normalized and mainstreamed heroin use and glorified it, rock and rollified it more so than Cobain. They make it seem cool and sexy. Now a bunch of people get hooked on opiates. It's no different from Lil Wayne with his styrofoam cup pushing baby opiates to kids. From there, people develop Oxycontin addictions. They might develop a Percocet addiction. And then who knows what happens from there? They overdose on fentanyl. I've seen it happen, right? So the artists are often used as advertisement vehicles for drugs. You know, the biggest spell is that people look up to these artists. They know them. And they often think, oh, there's this connection between creativity and drug use. I would argue there's no connection whatsoever. It all comes from within. It all comes from God. It does not come from these extraneous resources like drugs. And that's the big thing. That's the whole thing about music. It's like nothing normalizes it more.
I do think that drugs can certainly induce creativity, but I don't think they are the source of the creativity. And the best example of that, in like true creativity, I'm not talking just like getting in the zone, like, yeah, let me feel I'm talking about real creativity, pulling shit out of thin air, pulling it out of your ass. Two of the most notable non-drug users, anti-drug people, or let's say it this way, two of the trippiest, most out there, musically gifted, musically minded people in the world. Frank Zappa.
I was going to say Zappa. He didn't do drugs.
Frank Zappa, and who else? Robert Fripp, the genius behind King Crimson.
King Crimson's awesome, dude.
These two guys, you will not find more, like virtuosic, sporadic, all over the place, crossing many genres, right? The guy's a genius. Frank Zappa is a genius, and Robert Fripp is a genius. Those guys never even touched drugs. They many times they wouldn't even let people use drugs in their band. Okay, straight edge. So I have a soft position on weed and some of the more harmless drugs, but they can certainly be weaponized. We're certainly getting a lot of that George Soros kush going around recently. That's fucking CBD gas station weed is not what was in the Bible, not what we were meant to be smoking on. And, you know, mushrooms are good, but not mushrooms and rap music. If you're listening to like mushroom rap, that's not what mushrooms are good for. And if you're listening to the whole conscious rap, I know you guys kind of teed off on the conscious rap a little bit. That shit's all terrible. So kind of,
It doesn't get the party going. I'd rather listen to something straight up ignorant. You know, I'll put on some Chief Keef before the conscious rap. 100%.
But you're totally right that drugs are used to, one, control the artist, but two, shape society and shape culture. You know, through the music, we're like looking up to these false idols and saying, oh, even in the jazz scene, Charlie Parker, oh, do I have to do heroin to be as good as Charlie Parker? And then a lot of jazz musicians started getting into that. So it's definitely weaponized against, one, the artist, but two, culture at large, whoever listens to it, who's ever consuming this stuff. And you mentioned Snoop Dogg. Doesn't he have a children's YouTube? You know what I mean?
I don't know, but he's sellout number one. They need a guy for a fucking Nike commercial. They need a guy for a fucking iTunes commercial. They need, oh, I know a guy, Snoop Dogg. He's there. Snoop Dogg shows up for, Snoop Dogg will take a commercial job for like $500. It seems like he's everywhere. Right. He's on everything. If there's ever been a sellout, it's Snoop Dogg.
Well, Snoop it gets more interesting.
He's actually, you know, talk about real rappers, real gangsters. Snoop Dogg is believed to have killed at least one person. Mm-hmm. Ice Cube is believed to have killed at least one person. You know, these guys, at least they walked the walk a little bit, but still, I don't think we should just be giving these guys a pass because they made it to like 50 years old. You know, they still put out that message for decades. They still, and you know, Snoop Dogg's better than most, right? He's better than most. I'll give him that. He's a little bit more chill, a little bit more, come on, man, chill out a little bit. And like, you know, we don't need to. Wiz Khalifa too. I'm all about Wiz Khalifa. Wiz Khalifa's hilarious. He raps about two things. You only get two things with Wiz Khalifa: smoking weed, or three things: smoking weed, getting pussy, making money. That's it.
So
he doesn't do the
thing about
stuff.
Snoop, right? So he had a murder trial in 1996. Okay. But the funny thing is, from there, we have to ask ourselves, why did he get off? And if he got off for a reason, is he on a hook after that? Is he compromised? Is he a pawn? Is the reason why we see him everywhere not because he's a free roaming dog, because he's a dog on a leash, quite literally. And the thing with Snoop that he has in common with other rappers, specifically a guy like Lil Boosie, who we see everywhere. I actually met Lil Boosie.
Lil Boosie.
Lil Boosie, yeah. And quite the name, right? I met him in the Atlanta airport, and he was a cold guy, but whatever. But I just went up to him. I'm like, hey, man, big fan, because I was a huge fan. But it turns out Lil Boosie, he also got off a murder charge. And Kanye's mentioned this, like, hey, a lot of these guys who've killed people, they're on hooks. They're compromised. They are going to do whatever they're told. And they act like these big gangsters, but in reality, they're on leashes. And that's common. You see a lot of guys, they beat murder cases, but you have to ask yourself why, and then why afterward are they so mainstream?
Yeah, and also Snoop, like being a spy or a snitch, snooping, snitch dog. It's like, I'm a snitch dog, Snoop Dogg. I'm snooping around for info. Yeah, Tupac, we talked about a little bit. Him being super femmed out before he stepped into the gangster persona. He was like a theater kid. He wore like a bow on his, like, super gay.
Yeah, dude. There's a Snoopy Florida connection with a musical band. I was looking into bands from Florida, and I found the Royal Guardsmen, and they checked off a couple lists because, one, they're from Ocala, Florida, so I knew I could bring it up on your show, and two, the Royal Guardsmen is a militaristic name. And I think a lot of these bands end up having militaristic names, especially the ones who are industry creations. And the Royal Guardsmen, they have like a Red Baron album, and it's all Snoopy themed. They had a lot of like Snoopy collabs with the Royal Guardsmen. They use that imagery. I think they even licensed it and everything. And were they spies? Maybe.
Yeah. So when we talk about drugs, we talk about how it affects society. We have to talk about the boomers, right? The boomers and the whole rock and roll scene coming out of Laurel Canyon, all-time classic book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laurel Canyon, Covert Ops in the Dark Heart of the Hippie Dream by David McCowan. All-time classic. So this connects and it kind of structures what you'll see with sort of the a basic power structure in music, where a lot of these groups that you think are organic or might be organic are not organic. A lot of the most famous groups from the 1960s, and they have a whole list here, everybody from the Beach Boys, the Turtles, the Eagles, the Flying Burrito Brothers, Frank Zappa, a lot of people I haven't heard of, Joni Mitchell, I've heard of her, James Taylor, I've heard of him.
The Doors.
The Doors, Buffalo Springfield, the Monkees, the Byrds, the Doors. Yep. They all have families who come from military intelligence backgrounds. Oh, gee whiz, what a coincidence. So
do you know where the Doors got their name from?
The Doors of Perception from
Huxley.
Aldous Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception. And the Huxley family is a hugely connected family in the intelligence, the British intelligence.
Yeah.
I believe Huxley was quoting William Blake. So William Blake had a quote, "The Doors of Perception," and then I think Aldous Huxley used that as a title.
Yeah, it's a title to his book, and it's about because he went blind at the end of his life, and he took like a mega dose of LSD, and he died on the same exact day that JFK was ritually, ended, which is also my birthday.
He went blind at the end of his life?
Yeah, Aldous Huxley was blind. So the book is about vision and it's about seeing. You have your literal sight. Your eyes are really your doors to perception. But he had this whole thing where his vision was going down. So he wanted to open up that third eye. And so he took like a heroic dose of LSD. I don't know how much he was doing at the end of his life. I never read Doors of Perception, but there's definitely some stuff there.
So
sorry I had you singled out, Alan.
Oh no, it's cool. I promoted my book. I knew it was happening.
Nice.
But so the question when we have to ask ourselves, we think about the military intelligence connections between this cultural creation. Why? Because there was a controlled opposition culture in place pushed to control the opposing sides of the Vietnam War. So the boomers, the reason why they got so targeted is because there were so many of them and they were politically active. So how did you destroy that? You got them on drugs. You got them in this hippie culture that was not organic, and you got them to tune in and drop out instead of being activists, instead of being change makers. And now we see 50 years later, boomers, you're still listening to the Rolling Stones, still listening to the Beatles. It's been a half century. Mm-hmm. So part of the motivation for writing the Sharter is like, I can't have that happen to my generation. We can't be listening to Drake in 50 years. Drake's got some bangers. Okay. Yeah. But I also think that he's got an entire institution helping him write some of these bangers.
Drake is also descended from a Giselian family. He's half Giselian. He's Canadian. He's industry plant, of course. It goes without saying. You guys know this. But also going back to what you said about at the end of the day, these guys being drug peddlers, right? Merch peddlers, brand peddlers. One of the few conspiracy theories that my dad did believe in and would tell me about was that the Rolling Stones were just like an ice cream truck for heroin. Their tour bus in the 60s, England had unchallenged control over, to my knowledge, India. And before then, they definitely had parts like Pakistan and all over South Asia, Southeast Asia. The opium wars turned into the opium tours. The opium wars, opium tours. The rock bands are out pushing all this stuff. They don't need the Navy. Before they did it with their Navy. Then it became the rock bands, the British rock bands, pushing it. And the Rolling Stones in particular. Nobody ever glorified drugs like the Rolling Stones. I mean, they did it better than anyone. The Beatles, I've listened to almost every Beatles song. At best, they kind of flirted with the idea of expanding the mind and, oh, look at the colors and the shapes. And they didn't push smack like the Rolling Stones did. The Rolling Stones were like, put on your leather jacket, never talk to your family again, and stick the needle in, drop out, bang around, screw as many chicks as you can. The Rolling Stones were like the bad boys, right? That's another part. The Beatles were kind of like more palatable, more TV family safe. The Rolling Stones, they were the bad boys. Some people say they're the real first punk rockers. But my dad would always say their job was to sell heroin. And not so much so that the big Rolling Stones tour airplane, big airplane that they would tour with, it was protected, guarded, and like manned by an English government-backed like drug operation. And that their touring personnel were like government-funded drug peddlers, drug dealers, a drug crew. They would move the Rolling Stones coming in and out of town with all the police protection and all their equipment and instrument cases. That was all a big cover. Went hand in hand. It's not that it was a fake. The music was still there. The music was still good. People were still buying tickets. But it was all a big charade cover that could also allow for massive amounts of drugs to be literally brought in backstage, distributed. I don't know the ins and outs. But my dad believed that stuff, and he never believed in any. He didn't believe in 9/11 or any of that stuff. But he would tell me that. And there's so many other bands like that. Because in the 60s, England was losing their control of all their territory in which they grew opium. So that was kind of like their last-ditch effort to sell all their inventory before they lost control of their colonial India, colonial, North Africa, colonial South Asia. But that was it. They had to get the heroin off the shelves. So there goes the Rolling Stones. And the Rolling Stones, they were like, they sounded like the Beatles at first. Then they went dark blues, dark, gritty,
Well, dude, and the drugs really shapes the entire culture too. If you get the biggest band in the world promoting a certain lifestyle, now all of a sudden you're just setting the stage for the 80s where punk and hip hop kind of explode and drugs are pushed even more. And we can't talk about this without bringing up the Grateful Dead. People in the chat are talking about the Grateful Dead pushing LSD into their entire audience. And since we talked about Nirvana earlier, do you guys know that Courtney Love is on a Grateful Dead album, the rear cover? She's like 5 years old because her dad was working with the Grateful Dead, handing out LSD. And so was Katy Perry's dad.
Ooh, didn't know that. Didn't know Katy.
Yeah.
He was passing out LSD with Timothy Leary in the 60s at these Grateful Dead shows. And so, dude, I have a huge rabbit hole on Katy Perry, but I don't want to go into that right now. We should stay on the boomer stuff. But, the Grateful Dead, LSD, Rolling Stones, heroin.
The Rolling Stones, there's a common thread to a lot of these, which is like storytelling music. That's one of the components of blues that I guess rap, a lot of these more
storytelling and rap is big for sure. Yeah.
Underbelly culture, like music styles. The storytelling. I think of people like Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan might have been the first rapper. He couldn't really sing. He's more so talking, right? And he's promoting a lot of that same, most of the Rolling Stones, a lot of the Rolling Stones early hits were Bob Dylan covers. Same with Jimi Hendrix, all along the Watchtower. People would cover Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan, musically, there's not much going on there. It's all about the lyrical content, right? That's why people like Bob Dylan. He's like a songwriter. They call him a poet. He's one of the most upfront, open people when it comes to the deal with the devil. I mean, he says this stuff in interviews. Who else is kind of in that echelon of legendary but not really musically gifted? What's this guy's name who just died recently? Jimmy Buffett, another Florida legend, and the Grateful Dead, Seth. Exactly. The Grateful Dead, they're even worse than the Rolling Stones. I think most people already know about the Grateful Dead. The acid tests, and that's kind of all out there. Yeah, they are the acid people. The Rolling Stones are like the heroin people. And Jimmy Margaritaville Buffett, he's the fucking, if there's anyone, I think they struck gold with Jimmy Buffett. Bob Dylan was too much of like a punk, too much of like a, I don't know, rough,
like a renegade.
Yeah, rough kind of youngster counterculture type figure. The boomers liked him, but he didn't sail the ship that the system needed, right? Same with the Grateful Dead. That was too counterculture, too subculture, too cult. Like, they needed big. Who's big? Who's everywhere? Who's the silent killer that me and people like my age, we don't even know this guy. We don't even know who it is. Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett is the boomer icon, the boomer anthem maker. He is the retire. Once you were there, that's what it's all about. Retiring, a second house in the Keys,
Wasting
cheating on
away.
your wife, wasting away. That cheeseburger that you shouldn't have eaten, a little extra greasy, It's like the indulgence, the materialism, but also just kind of going along with the system and like accepting it and just like, I'll vacation my way out of this, That boomer lifestyle is so encapsulated by Jimmy Buffett. And I hate that he's like a Florida guy, but Jimmy Buffett, he's as bad as these rappers. Don't get it twisted, folks. It's just more sweet and palatable. It's more
you mentioned
smokescreen.
Totally. And you mentioned like tuning out. Wasn't that the big phrase of the 60s? It was like turn on, turn up, and tune out. It was all about tuning out of
dropping out of reality, getting lost in music, wasting away in Margaritaville, getting effed up on whatever it is. Choose your drug. You know what I mean? I think you're right that they did strike gold with Jimmy Buffett because he's so unassuming, kind of happy. It's like, no, this is party music. It's like, yeah, exactly.
The dream that Jimmy Buffett describes in his music is really about decadence and self-centeredness. It's disgusting.
His name is Buffet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, it's like Warren. It's like Warren Buffett too. Jimmy Buffett, but yeah, the boomers, man. Jimmy Buffett.
We should do a whole show on the Beatles. Like maybe we don't even touch that today because that's the whole
Paul is dead thing and the fact that he probably died. That's an interesting rabbit hole. And the furthest I've gone down that is the guy Adorno, Theodore Adorno, I believe his name is, who allegedly wrote all their music. And that's when it gets pretty gnarly.
Well, let's talk about that with the rap music too. Dude, not only is this music like gorilla grunting, mumble, diarrhea music, they can't even come up with it themselves. Half these guys are paying, like gazillion scientists in a lab to come up with these beats and come up with these. Okay, you don't make the beats. You don't even write half the shit. What the fuck is going on? Why does anyone listen to this?
Who's the archetype of no talent in hip hop? Puff Daddy.
Yeah. No, I can't name a single song.
Awful. The only thing he does he talks. He talks. He can dance a little bit, but he can't sing. He can't produce music. He has no musical talent whatsoever.
Yeah. And he's been
They just talk, you know,
Well, dude,
and it's like disgusting. They
remember when-
can't play any instruments.
I remember when Puff Daddy came out when I was a kid, and I remember kind of seeing through the charade. I was like, this guy's not real. What is his name? Sean? Is it Puff? Is it Diddy? Who is this guy? And I had this sense, this innate sense inside that this guy is totally fake. He's got pants. Well, how is he propped up? You know, there's no talent there. I knew it as a kid, but I didn't know all the details.
Unfortunately, I didn't. I think Puff Daddy's, what is it? Puff Daddy and the Family was like the first CD I ever owned. So I thought
We all
it
fell
was
for
cool.
something, dude. I fell for my own version of it.
Yeah. Rick Rubin, Ravensbrück says, I think Rick Rubin's a fraud. I don't think he's good. I don't think he's produced anything. That's my opinion.
He can't play an instrument. He's completely non-musical. All he has is like his opinion.
Yeah. He's literally, you know what his superpower is? It's like the okay, gloves off. Okay. Rick Rubin's superpower is the same superpower that a Jewish lady at a restaurant has. No, I don't like that. Send it back and give it to me better. No, I don't like that. Do it again. No, I want you to like that. No, that was too hot. No, that was too. That's all Rick Rubin does. He's literally just like the call guy. He makes the call. You know, the musician, he says, oh, do it that way, do it that way. You know, at best, a producer is in there kind of, he's musically literate. You know, he knows more about music than the musicians, right? He can help them with songwriting. He can bring out their talents. Rick Rubin's not that. He's not an engineer. He's not even a producer in the general sense. He's literally just like I didn't like the way that sound. Do it this way. Do it that way. But not like musical insight. Not like, oh, do it like this. And he picks up a guitar. It's just criticisms. He's just like a bitchy snob who just kind of snobs at best. Let's say he really is talented. He just has a good ear. That's it. And he even says that himself. At worst, he's a complete shill. He's nothing but a ceremonial magician who puts demons into the music. He's barefoot all the time. He's meditating all the time. He's doing this Kundalini junk. He's into the transcendental everything, the new age, all that stuff. You know what the most damning thing on Rick Rubin is? One of my not my favorite bands, but a band that I really like, the Black Crowes. Okay, I like some of the members. I don't really like their music, but I like, what's his name, the lead singer. I've shown this on another video, another live stream. Rick Rubin, he doesn't do anything. And everyone that's worked with him says this. They're like, yeah, he's never even there. Like he showed his face like twice. We paid like $2 million, you know. He wasn't even there. But one of the things that he did suggest that we know for sure was when he was working with the Black Crowes, he suggested to them that they change their name to the KKK.
That was the Cobb County Crows or something like that. With all K's.
He said, make it all K's. And I'm like, okay, now I think I know what Rick Rubin's, what his contributions are. They're like purely Kabbalistic. He's just like a ceremonial magician that puts in those little esoteric Easter eggs that he's the guy putting in those little Illuminati clues that make you stay up all night. He's the guy saying, oh yeah, let's make the music video mirror the school shooting that's going to happen in a week. I think that's what Rick Rubin's contributions to all this stuff is. He also does work with rappers. Sorry, rock people. But it's usually like dumb stuff. It's usually like dumb music. I like System of a Down. I think a lot of the things they bring to the table is cool. But Rick Rubin's kind of like the guy who brought up System of a Down. And ultimately, System of a Down was just like chugga 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 la 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 chugga 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 la 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 la, like screaming clown music. It's just dumb. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. How do you guys feel on that?
No, I actually listened to an interview with Serge pretty recently, and he was saying how Rick Rubin was trying to get them to take out a certain lyric. of their song. And then Serge like stood strong. He didn't let them. And then Rick said years later, I'm really glad that stayed in there. It's a cool lyric, even though it didn't make any sense. But I like System of a Down. I got in trouble for trying to steal this record from a Best Buy when I was a kid.
That's really funny. So I've always seen Rick Rubin as sort of a construct. It sort of reminds me of Elon Musk in the sense that is Elon Musk this super genius traveling through space and, controlling this company and that company. He's the only man who knows the secrets of space travel. That's how I see Rick Rubin, where it's like, oh, he knows all the secrets of hit making and music. I don't think he does anything other than act as this construct. The classic Jay-Z song, "You crazy for this one, Rick?" 99 Problems. Absolutely disgusting trash. Jay-Z says, there's a bunch of crack in my car. And then he's complaining about, why did you pull me over, officer? They got the right guy, Jay-Z. You should be in jail. You're a piece of trash. You got crack that you're selling to kids. You and Biggie Smalls. This is the most disgusting thing about rap music. Oh, they had no other option. They had to sell crack to their family members and their friends. Yeah. Get out of town, you pigs. You don't belong anywhere in any neighborhood, So
you want to hear a little Jay-Z story? So a band that I do like, Queens of the Stone Age. The lead singer for that band, Josh Homme, he called out Jay-Z one time because he got invited to like play at a Jay-Z concert or like a Jay-Z hosted, event or something. Or Jay-Z went on after him, right? So he kind of had like the higher status at the show or something. He goes in and he said that Jay-Z's security team was searching band members, which is super uncommon. Not only was he doing something unorthodox, which is, if the band's got some weed on them, just let them go, right? He's a hypocrite because he's the guy who's like, yeah, smoke here, smoke there, don't tell me what to do. And then other bands playing on the same show as him, he's cool with his own security team kind of frisking them, searching them for drugs. And that really rubbed this other guy the wrong way, Why is Jay-Z's people searching people for drugs, Do they want them? Like, are they taking them for themselves, whatever. But
yeah, it's like we are at the end stage of hip-hop hypnosis because there was a time period, where Jay-Z was this super cool, untouchable figure, right? He was presented during the Obama administration. The Obama administration was kind of the peak of kind of rap culture. It was kind of sick, right? It was kind of sickening. Maybe even a little bit after the first Trump administration. But Jay-Z nowadays is like a loser. There's this classic trope. It's like, would you rather take $50,000 or dinner with Jay-Z? Jay-Z would have to pay me $65 million to have dinner with him. He's going to reek and smell like shit the whole time. Flies around his head. Get lost, Jay-Z. Total loser. He smells. It's awful. It's awful. So unkept.
Yeah. He's like the Rick Rubin of black people.
He's just a slob, and it's like, it's funny about Jay-Z. He's like, he's been really quiet since all this Diddy stuff has come out. It's like, dude, you were at those parties. Why are you so quiet all of a sudden? Like, what's going on?
And no one worships their skanky wife more than Jay-Z. I mean, Beyonce, probably a dude, by the way. Beyonce is a big girl. Okay, she's built like a dude. Now, they did some good work up here. I'll be honest. I think Beyonce is a dude, personally. I know
she is like the top queen bee of the whole high priestess system too. So I could see that they worship this androgynous type of gender.
I don't think she's a dude. But I do think it's interesting.
Alan, just because you rubbed out a couple to Beyonce doesn't mean we can't think critically here.
I'd say this. It's interesting how she is currently dyeing her hair super blonde and she's doing a huge country music LARP. She's LARPing super hard as a country music woman, and she's somebody who really wishes she was born with blonde hair and really wishes she potentially was born differently. And that's kind of what I see from her personal behavior.
Well, dude,
Beyonce, seance,
That's a good point.
Beyonce. He was a boy once. People are saying Beyonce, whatever.
Dude, there's a song on Jay-Z's Black album called Lucifer.
Aren't they
Well,
aren't all his albums black?
Well,
Well, then
here,
the hook is I'm from the murder capital where we murder for capital. And it's, yeah. What were you going to say? Al?
well, Seth, what date do you think the Blueprint, the album's called The Blueprint by Jay-Z. What date do you think it was released? I'll give you a clue. 2001. Give you another clue. September. The exact same day. Google
Shut
it.
up.
Google
Shut
it.
up.
Google
September
the
11th?
Blueprint. Dude, the Blueprint
Blueprint?
by Jay-Z. Google it. The exact same release day. Whoops. Yeah.
Dude, there was a
And you know what's crazy? It's so blasphemous. He often calls himself Hova, sort of to mock
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. His archetype is, luckily sort of being destroyed as we speak, though. So I am
Dude, there's
joyous about that.
There's another album released on 9/11/01, and it was Leftover Cracks album, Mediocre Generica.
Oh, the ska band, like ska punk metal band.
Like ska core, crack.
They are
Crack
also Leftover Crack. What was the other band that they were?
Choking
like
Victim.
Choking Victim. Way
Yeah.
better than
Dude.
Leftover Crack.
I mean, I love both of them. I'm a huge Choking Victim fan.
Yeah.
But they put out their first album on 9/11/01, and then their second album was called Fuck World Trade. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear on your channel.
Oh damn, that's okay.
Um,
Damn.
but anyways, yeah, the dates are weird, and like going back to the Beatles
Oh.
and the White Album.
Dude,
What?
sorry, can I cut you off?
Go,
Can I-
please.
Just before we get away from the September 11th date, did you guys know this kind of pulls some things together here? Do you guys know what happened on September 10th? That was one of the most world famous events to date up until then.
You mean Donald Rumsfeld announcing losing $2.3 trillion from the Pentagon budget?
It wasn't that, but it might have been the first distraction to that before the 9/11 final grand distraction and cover up. Right? 9/11 was more of like the cover up of that, right? The distraction to that on the same day. September 10th, guys, world famous until September 11th happened. September 10th is when the Jackson 5 reunited for a very momentous concert that was like a Live Aid type deal where the Jackson 5 were reuniting. So Michael Jackson and his family, 2001. This would have been huge in the world of music. Nobody even remembers it happened because 9/11 happened the very next day. They just scrapped it. They did that one show, and I guess no one ever talked about it again. But that was the biggest thing in the news up until 9/11 happened.
Did you know that Prince predicted it at a concert? He made some specific quotes about Bin Laden and things of that nature prior to the event. It's in one of my books. So it's
Interesting.
Wow.
It's like a direct quote from Prince. So it's this is such an expansive topic. I just want to show everybody these. These are all the musical truth books I have. There's a lot of them. You know what I mean? So it's a really expansive topic.
Let me show.
Yeah.
Let me show.
Who wrote those ones called Musical Truth?
Mark Devlin.
Okay.
Oh, we gotta go this way. Gotta go this way. Oh shit, I got it.
Nice.
There we go. So yeah, these are some good ones. These are all classics, in my opinion. And Isaac Weishaupt is really good. But yeah, Prince, he made some remarks at a concert. Really specific remarks. I can't pull up the specific quote now, but it's Prince had some things to say prior.
Well, you know that he predicted
Yeah.
his own death too. He has a song called "I Will Die for You." 4, and it's spelled with a 4, and it's just the letter U. The U is the 21st letter of the alphabet, and he died on 4/21.
Damn. Lots of dark magic at work, but
Yeah.
just to show what I'm talking about, yes, the Jacksons, formerly known as the Jackson 5, did perform on September 10th, 2001 at Madison Square Garden. Okay, this is like, this is New York. This is not on the other side of the country.
That's a Monday, too. Who has a concert on a Monday?
Yep. 2-night reunion, and I'm assuming the second night didn't happen because September 11th happened.
New York City.
So the second night, to my knowledge, did not happen because of September 11th. But yeah.
Interesting.
So, September 7th. Sorry. September 7th and 10th.
Okay. Well, that's
So I guess-
7/7. Sept 7. People think the 9/11, I mean, it does summon the 99, which is 333s, but sept, remember, it means 7. So there's really the number 77 being summoned, especially when you see it was a flight 77. There's 77s all over that thing, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Look at
I gotta,
this.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just have a great tie-in right now with hip-hop hypnosis, because during this time period in American history, the post 9/11 era, we see the emergence of a rap group called G Unit, right?
Limp
And
Bizkit.
we remember back during this time period, this country was thirsty for war. Like, I remember being like at a youth football game and people are like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we talked about how like hip hop specifically can tie in with tribal warfare. And we think about the 2001, 2003 time period, who, as American citizens, right, it's kind of miraculous that we took over 2 countries. Like, it's, from a logistical standpoint, it's actually pretty mind blowing, right? So when we think about a group like G Unit and the soldiers who, a lot of guys my age, a lot of guys our age, right, who actually executed that operation, do we think that groups like System of a Down, but also groups like G Unit, are being listened to sort of act as the drums of war? When we think about G Unit, the guerrilla unit, they're sort of the first, not just gangster group, but like guerrilla gangster group. They were essentially a militarized gangster group. And we have to ask ourselves, when 50 Cent has a video game like Blood in the Sand promoting like a desert operation, no different from Call of Duty, we have to ask ourselves, how does the music, just like what we talked about in the 1960s, the hippie culture being created to sort of stave off any resistance, how was the post 9/11 time period promoted in music? And I would argue that G Unit, guerrilla unit, G Unit, was a huge part of it, especially for people, men of my age group, who, in Seth's age group, who were going off to Iraq and Afghanistan by the droves, right?
Mm-hmm. I graduated high school in 2005, and the guys who went off to the military, they were definitely listening to hip hop. Definitely, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, Woodstock 99, Woodstock 69 was Flower Power and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Joni Mitchell, right? And then I don't know if she was at Woodstock, but Woodstock 94 was the punk rock one, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Green Day was there. I don't know who else, but Green Day was there for sure. Woodstock 99 was the new metal one, right? It's Korn. Who, did you guys know? This is another thing we got to do a show on that we didn't really talk about with the sagging. It's like diarrhea music.
Korn?
Diarrhea. No, seriously.
They tune their bass so low that it's the brown note.
Wow.
Yeah.
Roots
No.
Opera.
Jonathan Davis, who I believe he's Scottish, I believe, from a Scottish Freemasonic family. Can't say for sure, but that's another K name, Knights of the Golden Circle, the KKK, Rick Rubin with the Counting Crows, Black Crows, wanting them to become the KKK. What's with all these K names? Circle K, Kmart, all this stuff. Well, another one is fuck. What was I just talking about?
Korn.
New metal,
Korn.
Limp
Yes.
Bizkit, Korn.
Why Korn with a K?
Mhm.
And why is it backwards? Well, Jonathan Davis tells you, and Korn is credited with like creating the new metal sound, right? It's largely Korn. I guess Limp Bizkit was
Slipknot too.
one of the early ones too. Korn takes their name from a diarrhea sex act that Jonathan Davis witnessed, I guess, when he was at a party and decided to name his band after that. Now, seemingly irrelevant, right? But have you ever heard some Korn songs? It literally sounds like he's diarrheaing into the mic. And when people are incoherent, we usually say that about their speech, right? It sounds like, you're shitting out of your mouth, right? What's with the sagging? There is something to like this, Seth and I were joking about how what does sagging do to the aura? Are you just oozing, like dumping out this root chakra energy everywhere you go? There's something to this because, okay, Woodstock 99. Did you know that at Woodstock 99, they literally, like the porta potties and all this shit, it was so poorly designed that when Korn was playing, when all these big bands were playing, and they had to, like call the concert off because it was so much crime, so much R word, so much violence, they were literally dancing and having mud wrestling fights in the shit from the porta potties.
Can't make this up.
You're telling me no one noticed that was fucking shit? Unless they didn't care because the music was like promoting that lifestyle. So you got Korn playing through the speakers. You got people purposefully like dumping over the porta potties to make it like wet and so they can like surf in the mud and the fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Who organized Woodstock? Woodstock is like the perfect encapsulation of what we've been talking about. Woodstock 1.0, flower power, summer of love, nice flowery festival. There were still some mud fights, don't get me wrong. Woodstock 2.0, punk rock mud fest, famous for a mud fight. Woodstock 3.0, new metal shit festival. Literal like shit in mouth festival. Woodstock. And who created Woodstock? They were Chilean. I just gotta say. That was a psyop, a Zionist ran psyop. Just to put it plainly. Woodstock.
So guess who made an appearance at Woodstock 99? In addition to Carson Daly from TRL, but guess who?
Who?
Diddy. Diddy was there.
Really?
Yeah, he was there, man. I gotta confess, I don't think I've snapped out of my new metal hypnosis, because I dabble with some of that lineup. Kid Rock, freaking he's got some jams. Limp Bizkit, DMX, sick. He had some good jams. Alanis Morissette was there. Who else? Jewel, she's got some bangers.
Limp Bizkit, Woodstock 99.
Yep. Big time. There was a lot of James Brown was there. I mean, they had a talented lineup.
Was Rage Against the Machine there?
They were there. They sort of encapsulate just the not so obvious establishment, right? Because they got a guy like Tom Morello.
Yeah.
They talk you all this game, but it's like, dude, you went to Harvard.
Yeah.
Like you are
And
the
they're all-
establishment.
And they're all Jewish. They're all
Are they?
Jewish. No, they are. I mean, that doesn't matter. But if you're pretending you're like counterculture, punk rock, guerrilla, refugee fighters, they're rich Jewish kids from California. They're like, come on. They're not talking, they're talking a walk that they don't walk. The Rage Against the Machine. They were raging for the machine the entire time. Yeah.
But it's the same thing we saw in the 60s with this controlled opposition sort of counterculture, right? In the 60s, It was all about flower power. And okay, now here's your counterculture. You're going to rebel against the system by spending $300 to go to a concert and then camp out for 3 days. And oh, wait, water's $4, which was a lot back then. and now you're dehydrated, and now you're around a bunch of people you don't know, and now you're getting pretty angry, and now you fought a guy, and now, you know, all bets are off. You're a hedonist, and before you know it, you're wrestling in the mud like a pig.
Well, dude, a lot of these festivals and big shows, really, they prop up the artist way high up on these stages, and it further kind of hammers home like this false idol worship.
Big time.
You know, all the peasants are down on the ground in the mud, in the crap, and then there's these people up on stage. That's who everyone aspires to be. Everybody wants to be that rock star, and it puts this divide between artists and the listeners, where it really should be on the same level. Like, really, the best music is when you're on the ground level, co-creating, and you're dancing together and you're doing a thing together. But the huge festivals and the huge stages, I never really liked that. It just divides people so much.
Yeah, I can only really ever get into it. I can't get into unless they're on a 60-foot tall stage, attached to wires, swinging from the sky, coming down from a hole in the roof, a halftime show at the Super Bowl. That's real music to me. I mean, Red Hot Chili Peppers with Kendrick Lamar live at the Super Bowl halftime. I mean, that's live music for you, you know. Well,
it's interesting you mentioned Anthony Kiedis, because if you read, oh, dude, I got some gravy I'm about to drop on you guys. My theory.
Underage
no,
stuff.
I don't know about that. I don't know with Anthony Kiedis specifically. I don't know about what's going on with that, but specifically, I read his autobiography. It's called
You
Scar
didn't
Tissue.
catch it?
Catch what?
You didn't catch the underage part?
I don't, dude. I'm so aloof to the news unless I'm like.
It was in his. It doesn't matter. But it was
in Scar Tissue. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it went over my head. But the one thing I picked up from that book was a few things. First of all, his dad was a guy named Spider, who was a drug dealer. So he was babysat by Sonny and Cher. That's how connected Anthony Kiedis was growing up. So it's not like he came out of nowhere, right? He was born and bred for that role. They told him, like, you're going to be like the next James Brown. Like, even when he was a kid, right? He's being babysat by Sonny and Cher. His dad's a drug dealer. His dad's name is Spider. Sorry, you just reek of intel, of an intel op from the very beginning. But this is a gnarly gravy theory I have. When it comes to Anthony Kiedis, if you read his book, he claims he's done all this heroin, all this coke. I don't think he's ever done it. I don't think Russell Brand has ever done heroin. I don't think Anthony Bourdain has ever done heroin, not once. I think guys like Anthony Kiedis, Russell Brand, and Anthony Bourdain are used as advertisement vehicles. And so they purport to have this, habit, this, all these disgusting things. But why do you look fairly healthy for the most part? Yeah. Why is that?
Well, dude, what's the name of Kiedis's one of their first albums? Blood Sugar, Sex Magic.
Right.
Yeah. And their band symbol. Not many bands have a band symbol.
Oh,
but the Red Hot Chili Peppers band symbol is
it's a starfish.
It's the chocolate starfish. Okay, it's the Limp Bizkit. That's what I should have said. With Korn, I hate to throw Limp Bizkit under the bus, but they're also like a diarrhea music, like the starfish,
the chocolate covered starfish,
and the hot dog covered or the hot dog flavored water.
Yeah.
But fuck, what were we just talking about?
Anthony Kiedis.
Okay, Anthony Kiedis
and the symbol.
People say they're like a rap funk. People say they're like a funk band. They're a rap band. They're just like rap and rock. They're funky, but they're rap rock, right? Even when they went more mainstream, they kept that rap kind of element. He's Anthony Kiedis, widely considered a terrible singer. You guys know about this? He's considered a terrible, terrible singer. He's had issues his whole career with not hitting notes, having to have like constant vocal coaching his entire career because he can't sing.
He forgets lyrics a lot too.
Yeah. Now, the symbol of the band, it's like a subtle sodomite sigil. It's a sodomite sigil. Let's just call it that. Like the Target logo. Okay, the Target logo, the Amazon logo too, with the it's like the 6 spokes of a wheel, kind of.
You
These
mean
are
Walmart?
all Walmart. You're right. Thank you. You're right. Amazon is the dick. The smirk, the Amazon smirk, the Amazon smile is a penis. It's a stick figure penis. But Black, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Target, Walmart, sigils of sodomy.
And the Chili Peppers were such a sex symbol. I remember it was like my guidance counselor in high school. She didn't ever have to say this, but I remember her saying, I have such a huge crush on Anthony Kiedis. I would do anything to date Anthony Kiedis. And I'm just like,
So guys, what part of mockery, sort of mocking the public, do Red Hot Chili Peppers play when we think of a lyric like "Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement"? They're telling everybody. No different from what was the guy? If you believe we put a man on the moon, man, it's this public mockery ritual, right?
Yeah. Also, Nirvana, Kurt Cobain's favorite. He had a couple favorite bands, but one of them was REM.
Mm-hmm.
So REM, right? They put a man on the moon. That's REM, right? Kurt Cobain comes back with his own song. I'm on a plane. I'm on a plane. I can't complain. I'm on a flat earth. You know what I mean? Like, Red Hot Chili Peppers has they faked the moon landing. REM has I don't believe they did the moon landing. And then Kurt Cobain chimes in with his own, we're on a flat plane. Maybe a stretch, maybe not, but they were all friends. All of them, Red Hot Chili Peppers, REM, and Nirvana. They would all play shows with each other. They've all been on each other's stages, to like accompany songs, right? They've collaborated with each other. So that's something they might have all had in common, was that sentiment or that directive from someone higher than them saying, hey, put that lyric in. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to say here is on Anthony Kiedis being a rapper, also being an R word, or a rap. He's a rapper and a rapist. He's a statutory rapper. Okay. Anthony Kiedis, in his book, everyone knows this. This is widely publicized. No one cares. No one's putting him in jail over it. He admits to sleeping with a 14-year-old girl in his memoir. He says, I took this chick, like her dad was looking for her, and I said, yeah, come on with me. And they go and they're on their own, and he bangs her a bunch of times. And then he goes, yeah, man, really bummed me out when she told me she was only 14. And then then I found out her dad, her dad was like a judge or like a cop or something like that, and put out a missing persons order. So Anthony Kiedis is statutory R wording and borderline kidnapping a 14-year-old girl. And the worst part is, in the memoir, the most incriminating part, he goes, it's okay, it's okay if you didn't know she was 14. Not okay, but, you didn't know. But this fucking guy, he goes, she told me she was 14, and then I was really bummed out about it, so I banged her again. So he banged her again after finding out. He was like, well, I already did it. Might as well do it again. That's Anthony Kiedis for you. It's one thing to make mistakes when you're a dumb rock star. It's another thing to brag about it when you're like 45. That's disgusting. Well, what is their music? Have they ever had a song where it's like, stand up for the people, even though that's cringe? Have they ever had a song like that? No, it's like freaky, freaky sucking and licking on a fucking sucking, and that's the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, and it's
like
it's
I wanna yeah, let me stick it in ya, like that's the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's like,
and it's sinister the way that we get hooked from it, because like Flea may be a really amazing bass player, and that's something you might be attracted to this music, and then you just get sucked into this degeneracy and this programming that they're putting out. It goes for any band. You might like a true aspect of part of that music, but then you just get lumped into this culture. Not lumped, but like dragged into this culture.
Mm-hmm. So guys, what do you think are the ways in which music can impact people positively? I think we've deconstructed the modern music industry so eloquently, right? It's kind of this really Christ rejecting pyramid of sin, right? Like it just is like, but it doesn't have to be that way. Music is awesome. The Byrds are music. I find a church choir to be very empowering. What do you guys think are the ways in which music, being the most powerful magic in the realm, can positively impact people? You know, yeah.
I'm gonna go first.
I mean, it brings people together. You know, you create an energy, and it's super amplified when you're harmonizing and resonating. Sound really is the most powerful thing in the world. And when you're harmonized, you have a sound wave, right? When you have two sound waves that link up, that match up exactly, they double in amplitude. And I just think there can be so much great resonance with music, especially with choir and the voice, because the human voice is the most organic.
It's the most beautiful instrument there is the human voice.
Exactly. It's the most beautiful, the most organic. And there's a lot of sound healing that you can do. When you sing, you're vibrating your vagus nerve, you know, and you're vibrating your whole body. You're vibrating your chakras. You're vibrating your heart chakra. And I think there's a huge potential for positive musical experiences, bringing people together, harmonizing, singing, playing in a band, and creating. So I love to make up songs. I love to improvise, and it's a way for me to be creative. So I don't know what I would do without music. Yeah, there's so much
ghouls. They look like literal ghouls.
Totally.
The last thing I wanted to say about the Red Hot Chili Peppers is, after decades and decades of California butt fucking, okay, these people are all morphing into like the same person. Look at the drummer on the left and Flea in the middle. They're not related. They're from different countries. Why do they look so similar? They are, I believe, personally, they are stepping into the same patterns of sin, which show themselves and shape the face. You know, your lifestyle shapes your face. I believe that. And these people, they're slowly turning into the same person. I don't know.
I can see it. Yeah, they're all pale too. Yeah, a lot of these big artists have terrible, unhealthy lifestyles, and they just die early. But there's one more thing I want to mention about positive musical experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have the greatest chance for that using acoustic instruments that do not require electricity. And that's what I've always loved. I was a sax player first. I love the acoustic guitar, bluegrass music, brass band music is sort of my thing, because the brass band, it combines the earthly boom bap and the percussion with the divine brass and the wind, the sustaining divine sounds of wind instruments. So for me, it's acoustic music. When the power goes out, what are you going to do? Your laptop, your Ableton's not working. You know, your big subwoofer isn't working. The best music is acoustic, in my opinion. So learn how to play some string instruments, some wind instruments, sing, you know, harmonize your own body. I think singing while you're alone can just do so much for your mood. It can lift you up. You can be creative with it. And I say, just go for the acoustic, the real music from the heart.
Yeah, well said, Seth. Also, to your question, Alan, what's the importance, the positive, influence? I always defer to the greats like Plato. Plato said, pretty plain and simple, the greatest people are raised with both gymnastic and music. So Plato believed that for the soul to be properly expressed, for the soul to properly and fully inhabit and make use of the human body, it had to be brought up and familiarized with music and athletics. He said gymnastic, but that's athletics. That's wrestling, gymnastics like jumping, stretching. That's all gymnastic. You could even stretch music, interpret it more widely to mean like art, theater. But let's just say music. I really do think it's just music because there's analogies and concepts in music that transcend visual art. And for example, how two notes can be the same but different. That's the main lesson that music offers. It offers you perspective into how all of the spectrums, in the electromagnetic spectrum, how they all sync up at specific nodes or specific notes. Note. How, for example, two notes can be the same, but different. You can have E, octave apart. To someone who does not play music, that is such a foreign concept. You can't make sense of it. This is this. It's the never-ending staircase. It's a spiral staircase that always catches itself at the top. It's an optical illusion, but it's like audible truth. It's you imagine you're on a spiral staircase and you're walking up, right? And you return to the exact same place you started, but you've also gone up a full flight of stairs. That's the type of concepts that music is opening up to you, that music is making fully, easily understandable. There's all these music is liquid architecture. Music it's building with sound pressure. It's building with light. It's building with light there's only so much visible light. What's not visible is magnetic or electrical or musical. All this stuff is whatever. So Plato believed it was pretty important. I'm going to go with him and say it's pretty important, and that it unlocks truths that you could never understand, explore, give analogies for, unless you had music. Music's the greatest. It's the greatest crutch in these kind of mystical endeavors.
Dude, do you have this book at your bookstore? This is the greatest book I've ever read in my life. It's called The Mysticism of Sound and Music by Hazrat Inayat Khan. It's an orange book, like Shambhala Press, I think.
Okay.
Greatest book I ever read. He talks about, you just mentioned it, how light and sound are basically the same thing. He says it all boils down to vibration. And dude, you're totally on point about the octave. That's the first overtone. So the way the universe works is based on overtones. Every sound has an overtone, which is its fundamental frequency, doubled and doubled again and doubled again and doubled again and doubled again. And those overtones all exist infinitely. The only thing is they get softer as they get higher, so you can't hear the super, super high ones. Plus, our ears aren't tuned to that. Our ears only really hear up to 20,000 hertz. Some people say 30,000. But the way that the world works is based on overtones, and that's a huge thing to study. I mean, that's the fundamental fabric of the universe. It's the octave, the fifth, the octave, the third. And so from one pitch, the musical scale, people think the musical scale was like made up. It exists inherently in nature. You make one sound. Well, guess what? I'm singing a fundamental frequency.
Yeah.
Let's just call it 100 hertz, but there's also 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 hertz in that sound. And it's the careful balance of all those frequencies that give you your specific timbre of voice, because Longo can say one thing at the same pitch that I say it, but you'll know whose voice it is because there's a certain fingerprint, and that has to do with the overtones. It also has to do with formants, but the overtones is big. If you guys want to blow your mind, look up the overtones and the graph, and then look up the shell. I'm sure you guys have seen that picture, how it's represented in nature in a physical way. Sound definitely is liquid architecture. The overtones give us a window into how nature and reality is actually built.
Yeah. I had a great experience when I was attending an Orthodox Christian church. They had an outstanding choir. So what would happen is I would go to this church and I would hear this awesome choir on Sundays. Then the following week, the sounds from the choir would stay in my head. So I would be infected with this positive, like holy energy throughout the remainder of the week because I got to hear music live, organs, human vocals being holy in the same place with all these other people. And that positively impacted me throughout the next week, sometimes 2 weeks after, just in my head. It was amazing. So it's like my follow-up question to you, both of you, is in Longo's Florida Atlantean Empire, how is music used? How is music used for you, Seth, in your ideal New Orleans haven? You know what I mean? Back to New Orleans, we're doing it with my rules.
Well, I'll go first if I may. As far as like my creating content, not many people know this, but I make about half the background music in my videos. That's a big rewarding part for me. I was a musician before I was Dr. Longo. I was trying to make it as a, guitar player. Like that was my thing. That's what I was all in on, and I still get to do that. I still get to record. I didn't know, thank God. Maybe God thought I'd be better at talking about conspiracy theories. I like to think he thought I'd be more useful in this, in this field than playing rock star. But I feel like I get to do both. I still get to be a rock star, but I don't have to live that dirty hedonistic rock star life, right? I can be a truth-telling rock star if you really want to be a rock star. But the real important part is I still get to make the music. Like I'm like poisoning these people with my music. Like 100,000 people will watch a video or something, and my music's in the background. So they're listening whether they know it or not, so that's rewarding for me. I still get to make music. And just as far as like Florida goes, Florida is largely defined by its music. So to me, that's regionally. Like we know a lot about South Florida because of the music that it's known for. The Cuban, Colombian, Miami flair. Like that's a unique kind of creation, Florida creation. And same, we mentioned earlier, the Southern, country rock, hard Southern rock kind of movement. That's a Florida thing too. So, yeah. Music has done a lot for Florida. Music is the way that a lot of people best understand Florida. Might not even know it. A lot of people's strongest connection to Florida is probably a band that came out of Florida. They might not even know it. But, yeah.
So no cymatic water temples.
Well, dude, I was just about to say. No, I was just about to say.
I didn't know what you meant. I didn't know what you were asking.
That's what, because the possibilities are so high. You know what I mean?
Step one, we're going to put the bells back into Bok Tower.
Okay, so you meant stuff like that. Okay,
yeah, that's what
I think you mean.
Then I would say
that was a great answer.
Okay.
But that's what I was thinking. Like Atlantis, like as music is the most powerful technology, it's sky high, and we're like at a really low time period. Specifically the last 100 years. Even something like Bach is like otherworldly in comparison to what we hear on the radio today.
Yeah. Dude, and we know that they're taking the bells out of all these epic towers and stuff like that. What's cool about Bach Tower is that it's a water system. It's not just a big tower with bells. It's actually a water tower, and it's on a hill, and there's orange groves all around it. So we're watering oranges with heavily structured, cymatically charged, divine spring water. That to me is sort of one of the ultimate ways we can fuse music with the material world that we live in and use it for more than just enjoyment, more than just entertainment, but real like health, real healing patterns. And I think we actually don't even really know the extent to which music can serve us. Most people think music, oh yeah, it's a party jam, it's entertaining. But what if music was way more spiritual? What if music was way more practical? I think that the organs in these old cathedrals have something to do with the rose windows, have something to do with the fountains in pretty much all the courtyards of these cathedrals. Mm-hmm. I think the organ played a huge part. Organs are the biggest instruments in the world. And if you look at the ones that were built hundreds of years ago, I mean, even in Bach's time, 400 years ago, they had the most elaborate, big instruments that you had to install in the side of a freaking cathedral. Are you kidding me? And now we hit a button on a laptop. It's like we don't even know the beginning of what music can do for us as a human race. So I like you're asking this question, and I also like Longo's answer because it's like it's all personal. Everyone's going to have a different answer. How does music serve you in the new earth? However you want, right? You do whatever you want with music, and that's what's so beautiful about it. Everybody has a voice, and whether it's making a beat or singing or playing an instrument, and I think about New Orleans too. It's got that's one of the most sacred musical places I've ever been to. The way they play and celebrate for funerals, there's a direct connection to the spirit world with their music. The way the drums make you shake your booty, but then the way the horns is the voice of the angels. It combines the spiritual and the material world. It's beautiful. So I think it's up to anybody. It's up to all of us, how we want to do it. If you want to charge oranges with structured water, go for it. If you want to start a choir, go for it. If you want to make beats for YouTube, and not just calling your songs beats, your whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Shelly, well said. Alan,
yeah.
What about you, man? What are you gonna start plucking the bass guitar, or what's up, dude? Ukulele?
I think I really like the concept of whistling while you work, right? I really like it. I can't whistle. I physically can't whistle.
Dude,
I can't do it for shit.
Dude. Go ahead,
but it's the concept that I care about. You know what I'm saying? It's it's the idea of just kind of singing along to your day. If I was in a band, I would definitely be a lead singer, right? That's my jam because my fingers were never really that coordinated for the guitar. I could do some things. I picked up some plucks or whatever you may call it. Drums, too loud, not into it. Bass, I don't have the ear for it. Guys who play bass have a specific ear. Never had the ear for it. They have this deep frequency ear. So the concept of music of whistling while you work is my favorite. And listening to the birds, I think they're nature's music. I think they're nature's healing mechanism. I do think that when we think about the cathedral technology, I do think it's actually when a human being is experiencing in a cathedral, right? These organs, these choirs, it's the human being that's being charged with the Holy Spirit. So that is my take on that technology. So I think it's very powerful. And I think I want to know about I want Atlantean cymatic water fountains, Longo. That's what I want. Do you want that? Cause I want your Atlantean take. That's what I want.
Yeah, no, 100%. In places like Coral Gables, there's what I've called an old world hydro grid. There's the water tower on one side of the neighborhood. There's the Venetian pools right next to it. And then there's water tower, Venetian pools. And there's something else. But there's all these weird systems from 100 years ago or more that used to rely on water pressure. So St. Augustine, those beautiful, beautiful old St. Augustine buildings, The one with 2 towers, the Ponce de Leon Hotel, the famous one. One had, I've heard it 2 different ways. One had hot water, one had cold water. I've also heard that one had clean water and one had the gray water, dirty water. Either way, we know that they would use the weight of the water in the towers to spin or to like pressurize to get energy for like a dynamo, like an electronic kind of generator thing that was largely powered by steam and water pressure. So that's that's St. Augustine. And if there's any one place to look to for like guidance, like how should we be building? Well, those buildings in St. Augustine, not only were they some of the first buildings with electricity in America, right? They're also still there. They're still here. I mean, we build a shopping mall in the 70s. It's crumbling by the 90s. It's, crumbling by the 2000s, 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they built in St. Augustine is still there, still max capacity. Ponce de Leon Hotel, that's still a university.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 500 people in that building at any given time. That building is not going anywhere soon. It's built like a brick shit house,
Mm-hmm.
coquina, right? So we should be building like that. We should be building out of solid stone. If we want to go full pipe dream, full wet dream here,
I want it.
Full cathedrals. I want the dolphins. I want the dolphins playing, singing cymatic frequency music. Every baby's going to get healed every baby's going to get delivered by dolphins. Don't know.
I support that
like
100%. But okay, so one thing I always enjoyed in my town was there was this bell, just a simple bell that would you could hear it throughout the town at noon. So just at a town, city, municipal level is a form of empowering, uplifting, musical ritual to empower the town of Lake Worth. What would you want? Mandatory church, like what? Mandatory choir?
No. Once a day church bell. I think most cities should get behind that.
Yep.
In real cities, they do like 4 times a day or, twice during the daytime at least. But once at noon, right? I think most cities can get behind that. It does something. I don't know what it is, but just to bring up St. Augustine again, when Henry Flagler took over St. Augustine and he took it over, he like bought up or built everything there. His one condition to the only other church in town, he allowed a church to build on his land. He gave them one condition: no church bell. You can build as tall as you want. No church bell. That's Henry Flagler. Henry Flagler, the co-founder of Standard Oil with John D. Rockefeller, the father of Florida, the father of St. Augustine, the father of Miami, the father of Palm Beach, Henry Flagler. He wouldn't let his neighbors put bells in their churches. And they say, he didn't want to get woken up during his afternoon nap. You think he gives a shit? You think he can't, just find a place to sleep or earplugs or something? He didn't want a bell because of the benefits, right? The tradition. So let's just bring that back. Whatever the Rockefellers and Flaglers were stomping on, let's bring it back. We don't have to go too extreme. Not everyone needs a dolphin water birth and, cymatic frequency water spiraling down from their dolphin powered fridge.
Cymatic water slides.
Yeah. Where there's no tube. There's no tube. You're just in the water.
With colors,
no
frequency
slide.
color. With turtles and shit.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, one other thing too about this positive music, I think we need more music that glorifies God and less music that glorifies the material nature of just the pleasure senses.
I think we're doing okay with all the fucking, you know what, dude, we are defended. We are armored against all the, let it flow. Let it all come. Let all the goy slop in the world can't make a dent on the human soul. Just let it come. More dark, more black for the nights, for the stars to kind of poke out of, The light should be kind of peeking out of vasts of darkness, if you try and make everything like, how are we gonna, I see what you mean, Seth. I'm not trying to shoot it down. I'm just saying, like, how would we legislate that? You're not allowed to talk about bad things anymore. That's
No.
That's going to create another,
I don't like prohibitory laws at all.
Right. So, but promoting good, that's what good is on its own. And I feel like we kind of, the Limp Bizkit needs to exist. There needs to be the filth. And it's okay to surf. It's okay to get down with the filth every once in a while. Just make sure you're surfing on it.
Mhm.
Like you're like on top of it. You're like riding it. You're not like drowning in it, Surf the wave if you gotta. But I don't know. Whatever. I don't want a world that I hate to knee jerk, Seth, but
I hear you.
I knee jerk at the idea of a world without Limp Bizkit, or a world without Kid Rock, or a world without,
I hear you. I just want to hear more people coming up glorifying God. Maybe it's my lack of having that in my life that I feel the need for it personally, and that's what my mission is right now.
Well, you know what, Seth, we're willing to take you in with our arms wide open into the sunset.
I'm gonna blast Creed after this.
Yeah,
for
Creed
sure.
is awesome. I'm such a Creed fan. Do you guys got anything else? I think we crushed it for the most part.
Well, dude, I mean, there's a
how I
huge Katy Perry rabbit hole, especially since she just went to fake space.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in the halftime show. I have a lot of gravy on that. We could do another show on that if you want to wrap it up. But there is a lot there, a lot, dude. And it goes into the Bible. It goes into Crowley. It goes into basically just mass rituals on the world stage to shape. It doesn't even give us something conscious to think about. You see Katy Perry coming out on a lion at the halftime show of a football game. You might not think anything of it, but the undertone there is Babylon working, L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, what she called the Scarlet Woman, the whore of Babylon. It's summoning these biblical and esoteric and magical things. So they're performing like magic rituals in front of us. We might not crack that open right now, but that is a huge thing that I want to talk about at some point. And maybe we can do more Monday music conspiracy rabbit holes. But that, dude, I just dove into that today, like even deeper. And the space stuff, forget the Super Bowl, forget Babylon working. The space psyop that they just did has so much juice to it, bro. Mm-hmm. It's insane. So
we'll talk about them. We'll talk about them another Monday.
Why don't we keep the listeners tuned in for that one?
Yeah, guys, stay tuned on Mondays. We're gonna try and do more Monday music conspiracies, esoteric music rabbit holes, music theory, stuff like that. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. But guys, it's been a great show, jam-packed. We've been talking about hip-hop hypnosis with the world's foremost expert on the concept.
Look at my one eye symbolism. He's in on the club.
Did you need
It's Illuminati. Anyways, guys, check out the book. There's a 9.5 hour audiobook in which I voice act every single one of these characters. It's a comedy crime classic. It's available on iTunes. It's #1 on Audible for absurdist fiction. The book itself is 322 pages. Seth loved it. I love it. Longo, when you listen to it, I recommend don't drive while you do it because it could be a hazard because you're going to laugh so much, dude. So
we sell the Sharter at the bookstore here. We look forward to getting.
I'm sending you guys some hard copies. The hard copies are for like real ballers, It's like a lot of, if you're like a real true baller, then I'd go for that. But everybody should get the audiobook. Everybody should get paperback. You should get at least 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10. Get one for everybody in your contact list. Just scroll through your phone and just buy and just copy and paste to everybody you know. Because the intent is there. I want to snap people out of hip hop hypnosis through humor so we can laugh and create beautiful music and art and whatever inspires you.
Amen. Guys, go get a copy of the Sharter. If you're a fan of Old World Florida, if you want to support the Old World Florida fam, go get a copy of the Sharter. Okay.
Yes. It is the soil to grow something new.
Go listen to the audiobook. Fuck it. Hit the Kindle up. Okay.
Yeah.
Go steal your mom's Kindle and download the fucking Sharter. Her credit card's already on there. You just have to tap and buy.
Mm-hmm.
Hey kiddos, go get your mommy's little credit card and go buy it. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But
and eventually I'm coming out with Sharter merchandise, like shorts all brown that say the Sharter on the back, and potentially sweatshirts that just say the Sharter, and a nice flat brim hat that says the Sharter as well. But no, I'm kidding. Maybe not, but maybe just get the book instead, or the audio book. You can listen to it on the go.
Have it say Sharter over the rear end of the pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Like juicy couture.
Yeah, but like all brown too, just really make it stand out style wise. You got to make a statement with your style sometimes. So,
I want to shout out everyone that was tuning in and in the chat, all the listeners. You guys are rad. Thanks for saying hey, and thanks for all your comments. Y'all the real ones.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat. Pat on the back, chat. Go get a copy of the Sharter. HIP-HOP-HYPNOSIS.com. HIP-HOP-HYPNOSIS.com. That'll direct you to the Amazon link. You can get yourself Kindle, audiobook, hardcover, paperback. Look at that. All right, guys.
Charterized.
Yep. Go tune in to Alan Ericson, Al Dog, Uncle Alfonso. Okay. Go check out Seth's channel, his
The
podcast,
School of Unlearning.
School of Unlearning
on YouTube.
He's also the author of The Fruit Companion. Soon to be. Can we announce that, or is that?
Oh yeah. I'm working on the second edition. It's going to be bigger and better, expanded, and doper. But it's pretty dope now.
Yeah, guys, get yourself a copy of The Fruit Companion, also available at the Dancing Elephant bookstore.
Yep. If you want to level up your fresh food game and learn how to pick out the best food at the peak season, peak ripeness, and know its water content and how it ripens for the 100 most common fruits in the world, this is for you.
Also on Amazon.
Indeed.
Fruit Companion. All right, guys, that's it. Hip-Hop Hypnosis, Diddy, Star Island, the Gangster rap agenda, and a whole lot more. Everyone have a good night. I hope, you know what, guys? Let's just make a pledge right here, right now, that we never, ever listen to another rap song. Okay? Let's all make the pledge. Everyone have a good night.
Peace.
Yeah. Great show, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Wild Indian, yeah.
Hey, V, line them up.
I'm a wild Indian, you know I go crazy. Ain't really Indian, that boy fugazi. I just keep it player, you can never play me. You got an ass so fat, girl, let's make a baby. And another one. Then I'm back to the trap, I'm trying to double some. She a bad woke chick and I love her tongue. We some jurisdiction boys, we some 101s. Look, don't compare me to no Martin dog, I'm like Malcolm X. Die about our freedom, we'll leave a crack and stretch. Round of applause, boy, you know we clapping text. Chucky dog, cows play, yeah, nigga, that's what's next. Open up the cans just like Arizona. Pull up masked up like we got the Rona. We set up jurisdiction. convictions when we buy the corner. How you claiming that's your hood and you not the owner? Be the B, I just pulled up in the need for speed. Free the land, tell the colonizers that they need to leave. Wild Indian up in my veins, you know how we bleed. You ain't gotta lie about who we is, dog, just keep it G. We at war, we can't keep the peace. Since we at war, gotta keep the peace. Whack a cone, then I meditate. Should I need to breathe? Keep a Olmec head when we slide, dog, cause we the shit.
Like my niggas said, bitch, we the sheets. I can't keep the peace. If it pop off, then I want a piece. I'm just on release. I'm in go mode, motherfucker thief. In these streets like EBT, when we at war, make peace with me. I don't give a damn, understand. Fuck who stole this land, white or black or tan. Understand, it's fuck who stole this land. Might have seen me get little buddy these hands. He wasn't no abo man. A lot of these dudes is Sambo man. They full of shit like my ammo can. What they call an N-word out the wrong mouth as an ambulance. Wild Indian, get it in advance, or you can post dated. Ask around, I'm the most hated. Straight sacred, they stole acreage. Go ape shit, show ain't shit. It won't be televised, I don't tape shit.
Be the B, I just pulled up in the need for speed. Free the land, tell the colonizers that they need to leave. Wild Indian up in my veins, you know how we bleed. You ain't gotta lie about who we is, dog, just keep it G. We at war, we can't keep the peace. Since we at war, gotta keep the peace. Whack a cone, then I meditate. Should I need to breathe? Keep a Olmec head when we slide, dog, cause we the sheep.